Chapter 20, The City in the Sky 2. Standing against the wind atop the railing, I widened my eyes, endeavoring to discern the reflection of the city in the sky upon the flowing waves of the river. Yet all I beheld was the ostentation of the city beneath the flickering neon lights. In my sober realization, I became acutely aware of my profound fear of death, dread of being submerged in the unfathomable moat. Turning to look at Mitsai, she appeared remarkably indifferent. "Are you truly not inclined to dissuade me?" I inquired with a furrowed brow. "Why should I dissuade you?" she responded. "But if I were to jump, I would surely perish," I exclaimed. "It is you, not I, who would perish," Mitsai retorted, her countenance unwavering. Disgusted, I leapt down from the railing. "I was not mistaken about you. You are a venomous woman, willing to let others perish to achieve your own ends." "I have no ends." "It was your decision to jump into the river," Mitsai replied calmly. Infuriated, I pointed at Mitsai. "Can you cease your indifferent attitude towards my demise? I recall I called you to dissuade me from jumping. According to the script I set, you shouldn't be acting like this. When I arrived, you were lying there as lifeless as a corpse. You wouldn't have jumped anyway. Why then did you bother calling me? Was it amusing to toy with me?" Mitsai's words finally bore traces of anger. Feeling somewhat aggrieved, I concocted another falsehood. I truly intended to leap into the moat. But just before I did, I remembered owing you over 10,000 yuan. My demise wouldn't matter, but no one would repay you that money. So, with a resolute heart, I refrained from jumping. For I am a person of conscience and moral integrity, utterly unwilling to commit such a despicable act as evading debts. "How tragic your words sound." Mitsai observed me with a smile that concealed deeper implications. "Tragic indeed. You cannot fathom the struggle I endured then, torn between the relief of death and the remorse of debt evasion. It was an arduous decision to uphold my moral standards, thus I am still alive," I exaggeratedly declared. Mitsai, seeming reluctant to entertain my fabrications any longer, rose from the ground, preparing to depart. "Wait," I called out to Mitsai. "What now?" Mitsai's words dripped with impatience as she donned the coat she had just draped over me. "Were you sitting here all afternoon watching over me? I came to collect your body, not to dissuade you. Hence, I arrived at dusk." Mitsai spoke with her characteristic calmness. "Don't fool me. If you came to collect my body, why did you bother covering me with a coat?" I dismantled Mitsai's lie with a meaningful smile. Mitsai turned back, her gaze cold. "A covering is customary for the deceased, don't you know?" Rendered speechless by Mitsai's retort, I stood there dumbfounded. My attention shifted from our verbal sparring, and the alcohol that hadn't completely left my system began to stir within me once more. Dizzy spells overwhelmed me, accompanied by a strong urge to vomit. Leaning over the railing, I emptied the contents of my stomach into the moat. I had indeed imbibed too much at noon. After vomiting, I slumped against the railing, feeling utterly drained. Closing my eyes, my consciousness grew increasingly lucid. Memories of the scenes from the wedding of Fang Yuan and Yen Yan resurfaced in my mind, followed by a wave of excruciating pain coursing through my body. In that moment, when Xiangchen adorned Jianwei with the diamond crystal necklace symbolizing commitment, how I yearned to recklessly confess to Jianwei. I longed to return to the past, to the silent, joyous past, to a past filled with love and affection. But the past was irretrievable. I had lost Jianwei, condemned to forever watch her find happiness in someone else's world. Amidst the tearing pain, a warmth seeped from the corners of my eyes. It seemed as if I were crying. Surely, it wasn't me who wept. It was the city in the sky shedding tears, breaking down the sorrow within my heart. "You're crying. Wipe away your tears." I opened my eyes to find that Mitsai had not yet departed. She handed me a tissue. I refrained from taking it. "It's better to let the tears dry in the wind, leaving no trace behind." Mitsai squatted down, her tone softening. "Perhaps my words were too harsh just now? I shouldn't have mocked you as a corpse." After a long silence, I murmured softly, "In truth, it has nothing to do with you. Even if I were truly a corpse, the pain would only last until death. But the pain of living is what truly rends the heart. Do you understand that feeling?" Mitsai shook her head. "I don't. Right now, all I can think about is when you'll move out of my house. Are you that tired of me?" I chuckled, tears seemingly dried by the wind. "Yes, your behavior leaves much to be desired. You are nothing short of a scoundrel." Mitsai bluntly declared. Is that so? But you do not know that the scoundrel you see once harbored a pristine citadel within his heart. I'm not quite sure what you're saying. You needn't understand. For today, that citadel has departed from my being, becoming a city in the sky that I can never reach. I replied, lowering my head to search my pockets, finding no cigarette to burn away the melancholy and mend my shattered soul. Mitsai fell silent. She sat down beside me, leaning against the railing behind us in the same posture. Our surroundings grew increasingly quiet, as if isolated from the city's bustle by the nightfall. A gust of night wind swept through, carrying an egalitarian spirit, extinguishing earthly desires. I spotted a cigarette on the ground, half-smoked and discarded by me. I picked it up, blew on it, and lit it again. The scent of tobacco once again permeated the air, dissipating in the dim light. Finally, I addressed Mitsai. I know you want me to leave. I'll move out, tomorrow. Is that a promise this time? It is. Having lost even a citadel, why would I care about a mere room anymore? Mitsai seemed curious about my recurrent mention of that citadel. She asked, what does the city in the sky look like, exactly? I pondered for a moment before replying, it's a city that's crystalline and translucent yet perpetually silent. It possesses a kind of magic that makes one forget worries, forget pain, forget ostentation. When you reside there, nothing else matters, for you transform into a crystalline bird, breaking free from all constraints, soaring amidst the winds of freedom. But birds eventually have to land. After landing, will they still be translucent? Mitsai asked, looking at me. I don't know. Because I've never considered what it would be like after landing. Perhaps my pitiful appearance aroused Mitsai's sympathy. That night, she didn't leave me alone by the riverbank. I sat in her car as we drove towards that bustling yet somewhat illusory city. I had made up my mind that after this night, I would move out of that old house. My life couldn't possibly get any worse, so why not grant Mitsai some peace? On the way, we remained silent. I interpreted this silence as Mitsai's continued dissatisfaction with my repeated deceits today, and my current destitution and misery couldn't fully extinguish her flames of anger. Bringing me back from the outskirts already showed a semblance of kindness. Returning to our residential compound, Mitsai parked the car. As we walked towards the stairwell, we unexpectedly found Ban sitting on the steps at the entrance, with his decades-old black briefcase beside him. Chapter 21, The Significance of a Cockroach. As Mitsai and I approached Ban, I inquired, Ban, why didn't you call me? The temperature dropped sharply tonight. Sitting out here like this must be freezing. I did call you, but your phone was off, Ban replied, still as stoic as ever, devoid of any emotional hues. Upon hearing Ban's words, I recalled throwing my phone into the moat in a drunken frenzy. I couldn't help but feel a pang of regret. I hadn't earned much money, yet I squandered it all recklessly. Mitsai greeted Ban, Uncle, hello. Hello to you too. You two haven't eaten yet, have you? I bought some groceries from the supermarket to cook for you. Ban said, pulling out a plastic bag from behind him, containing fish and various vegetables. Uncle, the porridge you made last time was delicious. I'm sure your cooking will be equally delightful, Mitsai said with a smile I had never seen in front of me before, making me realize that I truly was an unpleasant person, not deserving of Mitsai's graciousness. In response to Mitsai's praise, Ban merely smiled and gestured for us to go upstairs. As we ascended, Mitsai walked ahead, with Ban and I trailing behind. I asked Ban in surprise, Ban, have you been staying in Suzhou these past few days without returning home? I went to Guangzhou for a trade show and passed by Suzhou on my way back. Ban's reply remained succinct. It made sense. With winter approaching, it was the peak season for orders of heaters in the state-owned enterprise Ban worked for. Around this time every year, Ban would have to travel to various places to procure raw materials. Back in the house, Ban went straight to the kitchen and began cooking. Mitsai wanted to help in the kitchen but was declined by Ban. She then retreated to her room, busy with something unknown, while I sat in the living room, lost in thought. The bitterness in my heart lingered, knowing it would accompany me for a long time, perhaps until the day I completely forgot Janwei. After a short while, Mitsai emerged from her room, dressed in casual home attire, which made her appear much more approachable. However, her beauty remained undiminished, seemingly intrinsic to her, effortlessly radiating regardless of her attire. Sitting there like a statue. Can't you go to the kitchen and help your dad? Mitsai seemed displeased with Ban's busyness while I remained idle. You don't understand. he enjoys cooking alone. Is that so? Because he sees cooking as a pleasure. Having someone help would take away his enjoyment. Oh, I see. So, his cooking must be delicious, right? You're not a foodie, why ask so many questions? Do I have to be a foodie to ask? Everyone has the right to be curious. You'll find out soon enough. It's only a matter of time. Neat Sai didn't press me further. She turned and went back to her room, then grabbed a laundry basket and headed to the bathroom. I was somewhat surprised, it seemed even a goddess had to do laundry. The sound of water flowing emanated from the bathroom, followed by the whirring of the washing machine. Listening to the rhythmic rolling sound, I drifted even further away, momentarily feeling detached from my own existence. A scream echoed from the bathroom, unmistakably Micah's voice, instantly snapping me out of my reverie. Before I could react, Dad had already rushed ahead of me, clutching a large ladle as he dashed towards the bathroom. I followed suit. Though Dad and I made quite a spectacle, capable of slaying wolves, at this moment Micah was merely confronting a cockroach perched on the edge of the bathtub. The cockroach, unafraid, trembled its antennae confidently, while Micah's composure had visibly faded. It was an evidently asymmetric confrontation, ironically featuring a living human as the disadvantaged party. Seeing me arrive, Micah instinctively stepped back, seeking refuge behind me. It mirrored a scene straight out of a melodramatic Korean drama. I thus found myself presented with a chance to play the hero, albeit against nothing more than a cockroach. Approaching the bathtub, I lifted the cockroach by its antennae. Its demeanor was highly unstable, violently struggling, prompting another round of screams from Micah. I couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. While each time she nearly choked me made her want to vomit blood, a cockroach lurking in the dark corner could scare her senseless. Such is the balance of nature. Lifting the cockroach, I turned to Dad and remarked, "Shall we add a dish? It's been a while since we've had meat. Stir-fry or steamed?" Micah recoiled in disgust. Dad, seeming to defend Micah, sternly remarked, "Stop fooling around. Dispose of it quickly." With a disdainful smile at Micah, I tossed the cockroach out of the window. Then, with a sigh, I remarked, "Alas! Even if it hadn't died from the fall, it would have become a homeless, helpless cockroach incapable of fending for itself. Better to die from the fall with a bit of dignity." Micah naturally understood my use of the cockroach to mock her behavior of always driving me away. Yet, she remained stunned, her expression filled with fear, silently reflecting on the recent cockroach incident. At that moment, a childish, somewhat amusing thought crossed my mind: if wealthy folks were as afraid of cockroaches as Micah, I could carry a pocketful of them for easy extortion. Surely, that would lead to effortless wealth. After the sudden event concluded, Dad continued bustling about in the kitchen, while Micah forbade me from leaving the bathroom, insisting that I accompany her until the laundry was done. Fearful of another cockroach leaping out from any corner, or perhaps a swarm, it was undoubtedly the relatives of the earlier intruder. After a while, the laundry was finally done. Micah retrieved the clothes from the drum, while I sat on the edge of the bathtub watching her. After a moment of silence, I said to her, "I'll be moving out tomorrow." "I know," she replied. "You must feel quite lonely by yourself, don't you?" "Why should I be lonely?" Pretending to be crestfallen, I remarked, "Ah, true. Why would you be lonely when you have cockroaches aplenty here? They can keep you company, playing hide and seek whenever you're bored." "How lively." Micah froze, then glared at me with anger, but I remained composed, saying, "Go hang the laundry quickly. We'll be eating soon." At the dinner table, Dad, Micah, and I sat on separate sides. Dad, usually taciturn, unexpectedly took the initiative to ask Micah, "Are the dishes to your liking, young lady?" Micah nodded. "Uncle's cooking is delicious." I knew this wasn't mere flattery. Dad's cooking truly was excellent, especially his sweet and sour fish, an absolute delicacy. Micah had good taste, mainly picking at the sweet and sour fish. After Micah's compliment, Dad nodded and smiled, then glanced at me, as if implying, "Son, I've done my part. The rest is up to you." I'd rather misinterpret Dad's meaning, as there was no possibility for Micah and me to develop a romantic relationship. Firstly, she was extremely annoyed with me. Secondly, I hadn't yet recovered from the shadow left by Janwei and Xiangchen. And thirdly, and most importantly, I wasn't worthy of her. Who has ever heard of a beautiful girl driving a luxury car falling for an unreliable scoundrel like me? Our encounter wasn't a wonderful arrangement but a means for me to understand the vast disparities between people, leaving me to die in shame. How despicable of fate. Lost in thought, Dad spoke again. Zhao Yang, after dinner, fix the water pipe, there's a slight leak at the joint. If it gets colder, it might burst. Understood, I replied. Dad nodded, then added after a moment, next time, I'll bring more rice and flour from home so you can cook when you get off work. Eating out is neither healthy nor economical. He continued, since you two are living together, you should take better care of the young lady, and you should cook more often and help out with chores. According to the agreement between Micah and me, I had to move out tomorrow. Dad, however, seemed to fantasize about our future life together, which left me feeling helpless. If I were to tell him about moving out, he would likely be disappointed. I nodded again, then glanced at Micah. Her expression remained unchanged, solely focused on her meal. Finally, Dad's attention shifted from me to Micah. He asked her, young lady, has Zhaoyang caused you any trouble living together? Afraid that Micah might expose my various misdeeds, I discreetly nudged her under the table, signaling her not to speak out. Little did I expect her to take advantage of it and stomp heavily on my toe, causing me to nearly drop my chopsticks. Uncle, he's fine. Except he always smokes indoors despite being told not to. Micah disclosed my faults to Dad, first praising, then criticizing. Dad stared at me sternly, and though I pretended not to notice, his gaze remained sharp and unrelenting. Micah, on the other hand, wore a smug expression. I'll change, I compromised reluctantly, feeling the futility of such concession. Micah was quite boring, and I was about to move out. Did it really matter if I smoked indoors or not? Once this minor incident passed, Dad seemed to be in a good mood. He asked me to fetch the glutinous rice wine he had brought last time from the kitchen. I poured him a glass and asked Micah, would you like some? Micah pushed her empty glass forward and said, just a little. I poured her a small amount and poured a little for myself. And so, the three of us, gathered around a not-so-large table, had a homely dinner on this bustling night, exuding a familial atmosphere. Don't misunderstand, by familial. Chapter 22, Opportunity for Promotion. After dinner, Micah and I escorted Dad to the outskirts of the neighborhood. Dad's hotel was just across the street, but he would be leaving early tomorrow morning. As Dad was about to leave, I asked him, Dad, when will you come to Suzhou next time? Whenever I have time. Next time I come, I'll bring you guys some rice and flour, Dad replied. As Dad emphasized you guys, a wave of helplessness washed over me. By the time he returned, I would have already left Micah's place and who knows where in this city I would be drifting. Truth be told, I didn't really want Dad to come to Suzhou. My lack of achievements, my destitution, always made me feel immensely guilty when facing him. Dad silently reminded me again, remember to fix the leaking pipe when you get back. I will, I replied. Dad nodded, patted my shoulder, then left without another word. Watching Dad's departing figure, I knew there were things he wanted to say to me, but he chose not to. He didn't want to burden me with too much emotional baggage. I lit a cigarette, feeling waves of unstoppable desolation. Today, Fang Yuan married Fang Yuan, Janwei became Xiangchen's girlfriend, and I. Best not to mention it. I thought to myself, I should go back and pack my bags. Tomorrow night, I'll find a corner in this city where I can settle down, albeit without a purpose. Micah had already gone upstairs before me. I finished my cigarette before returning. Entering the house, I found my toolbox and replaced the leaking pipe as Dad had instructed. I also checked other areas, ensuring there were no other issues. Then, I went back to my room to pack my luggage. Micah appeared at my room door at some point. She asked, did you fix the leaking pipe just now? Yeah, I've checked other places too. If there's any issue with the pipes or if you need to change light bulbs in the future, just give me a call. I'll take care of it, I said while putting my guitar into its case. Oh, but there are still cockroaches in the house. Do you have a way to get rid of them? I smiled and joked with Micah, if a sturdy guy like me can be driven away by you, can't you handle a few little cockroaches? Micah didn't say anything, just looked at me. Kidding with you. Tomorrow after work, I'll buy some insecticide and sprinkle it in the bathroom. It's almost winter, and cockroaches generally aren't active, so you don't need to worry, I reassured her. Okay, Micah replied before returning to her room. I continued packing my luggage. After finishing half of it, I sat on the bed to rest. I looked around, took out a cigarette from the pack, but ultimately didn't light it after being a jerk for so long. I decided to be a man of my word when leaving, even if it was just a trivial matter. Putting the cigarette back in the pack, I lay on the bed, habitually staring at the ceiling, letting my mind wander, unwilling to think about what happened at noon. The next day, I went to work as usual. Today, I had another meeting with representatives from Gucci. This was the final negotiation before Gucci set up its counter in our mall. If all went well, I would briefly get a chance to catch my breath. Ever since Fang Yuan handed over the responsibilities of Gucci to me, I had been working tirelessly. I stood in the plaza of the mall, discussing the advertising space with the Gucci representative. The Gucci representative asked me, "You promised to give us the central location at the south gate for our advertisement. We need your cooperation for our opening promotion." There's definitely no problem. We've already reserved that advertising space for Gucci. Your presence will undoubtedly enhance the prestige of our mall to a certain extent. Our premium resources will naturally be given priority to international first-tier brands like yours, I assured her. The Gucci representative nodded, saying, "We're willing to enter your mall because we see your sincerity in the proposal. Suzhou's upscale malls are not limited to your Brilliance Mall." "That's right," I replied, unwilling to offer too much flattery. Accompanying the Gucci representative around the mall, she suddenly stopped to look at the promotional posters placed in the middle of the aisle. "Miss Xiao, what do you think of this model in the posters?" she asked me. "The visual impact is strong, and she's very versatile. Her demeanor and appearance lean towards international standards, and she even has a quarter of Italian ancestry," I replied truthfully. "That's quite coincidental, as Gucci is an Italian brand. Are you close to her?" the lady inquired. I hesitated for a moment before answering, "We're friends, I suppose." Miss Zhao nodded, then scrutinized the poster featuring Li Yao for a moment before saying to me, "I believe her image and demeanor perfectly align with our product positioning. Contact her to help us shoot a set of opening promotional posters." I felt a bit conflicted and said, "I'm afraid that won't be possible. She's currently filming in Hengdian, so she probably won't have time for the next few months." Miss Zhao furrowed her brows and said, "I don't want to hear words like probably or should. Your response makes me doubt the execution capability of your mall. We've come this far in negotiations, and I don't want such trivial matters to affect our cooperation." Her blunt threat made me feel uncomfortable, but considering that this project was related to Fan Yuan's career prospects, I didn't explode. However, instinctively, I didn't want to contact Li Yao. Moreover, shooting such promotional posters might require location scouting elsewhere, which couldn't be completed in a day or two. As a newcomer to the crew, Li Yao couldn't expect the entire production to accommodate her schedule. Naturally, I didn't want to impose on her. "Miss Xiao, I'll do my best to contact her, but I can't guarantee she'll have time," I replied, although in my heart, I had no intention of reaching out to Li Yao. Miss Zhao impatiently waved her hand and said, "Forget it, I won't trouble you with this matter anymore. I'll talk to Manager Chen." With that, she left me alone and headed towards the office area. As expected, shortly after returning to the office, I received a call informing me to go to Manager Chen's office. Feeling irritated, I realized this was clearly an attempt to pressure me using higher-ups. For someone like me, they couldn't be bothered to waste too many words. Entering Manager Chen's office, I found him sitting behind his desk with a displeased expression. "I'm here, Manager Chen." "Do you know why I called you?" Manager Chen asked coldly. "I don't," I responded passively. Manager Chen tapped his fingers on the desk, his tone rising a few notches. "Zhao Xiaoyang, why can't you understand the situation? Gucci is the 8th international first-tier brand to enter our mall. Do you know what this means for us? It means, according to international ratings, our mall has officially reached the level of a top-tier department store, Class B. It's a milestone." "Manager, you're just stating the obvious," I replied. Suppressing his anger, Manager Chen said to me, "If something goes wrong at this critical moment, not only you, but our entire planning department will suffer. Don't pressure me. If the model's schedule really can't accommodate it, what can I do? Furthermore, both sides have invested a lot of manpower and resources into this project of setting up a counter in our mall for something as trivial as shooting promotional posters. It shouldn't ruin the cooperation we've been discussing for so long," I argued. "Before the contract is officially signed, no one should harbor any illusions. Other malls are all eyeing Gucci. We can't rule out the possibility that Gucci might terminate the cooperation plan at the last minute," Manager Chen said, his expression becoming more severe. I continued helplessly, "Even if the company fires me, I can't guarantee this matter. Manager Chen stared at me with a chilling gaze for a long time before saying, "There's something you may not be aware of. The board of directors attaches great importance to Gucci setting up a counter in our company. If the counter is successfully set up, there will be significant personnel changes in our planning department. Fan Yuan, as the direct person in charge of the entire project, will have the opportunity to become the deputy manager of the planning department. And you have a good chance of taking Fan Yuan's place as the team leader of the copywriting planning group." Chapter 23, Repay Debts. Before the pivotal moment concerning both Fang Yuan and my own prospects for promotion, I deliberated earnestly in my mind. Truthfully, I am quite capable myself, but the crux lies with Fang Yuan. If I could indeed ascend to the position of deputy manager in the planning department, there would be a qualitative leap in both remuneration and status within the company, with a bright future ahead. "Zhao Yang, if you can't handle this matter, I'll have Fang Yuan come back to handle it. He shouldn't even take his wedding leave." Chen Jingming, with a coercive expression, looked at me and said, "Don't, manager. If I can't handle it, he won't be able to either. He isn't familiar with that model." Chen Jingming softened his tone and said to me, "In fact, we're about to sign the entry contract soon. From what I speculate, the incident with Gucci borrowing the model is a final test of our company's sincerity in cooperation. Even without this event, there would probably be other unforeseen events. Whether Gucci will ultimately set up a counter in our department store not only concerns the company's interests but also the interests of our planning department, including yourself. So, no matter what means you employ, you must help the company get through this final hurdle." After deliberating in my mind for a while, I finally nodded and said, "I will do my best." "Doing your best is not enough. You must make it happen. You must promise me that." Chen Jingming adjusted his glasses, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. "This matter must be dealt with whether it succeeds or not. Right now, I can only hope that Liao can free up her schedule." After weighing it repeatedly, I nodded and said, "I will definitely make this happen." Chen Jingming finally breathed a sigh of relief and said, "That's great." In my heart, I thought, "You may think it's great, but I have to swallow my pride and beg a woman I least want to beg." "Do you have any idea?" As I prepared to leave, Chen Jingming called out to me again, "Zhao Yang, don't contact that model by phone for now. Isn't she filming in Hengdian? Tomorrow, go directly to Hengdian. You'll have a better chance of convincing her face to face. She won't refuse as easily then." "Manager, your consideration is thorough and wise." I forced a smile and said, "But no matter how I looked at it, he seemed like a shameless old fox. By pushing me into such a difficult position, he must have considered how hard it would be for others to refuse if their schedules were already tight." "How does that feel?" In the evening after work, as I sat on the bus heading back, waves of irritation surged within me. The source of this irritation stemmed from having to meet Liao in Hengdian tomorrow and moving out of the apartment I had lived in for 2 years tonight. This irritation evolved into frustration. It seemed like I could never decide my own life. Often, a few words from others would shatter my love, work, and life into pieces, like Jianwei, like the female representative from Gucci, like Mitsai. Back in that old apartment, I subconsciously glanced at Mitsai's room. Her door remained tightly shut, indicating she hadn't returned yet. Whether she returned or not had nothing to do with me. Now, I needed to fulfill my promise and permanently move out of this apartment. I returned to my room and packed my belongings again. In truth, I had already packed most of them yesterday. I only needed to pack up some items from the bed. After finishing packing, I turned on my computer and searched for houses on the local website that offered ready-to-move-in options. I found several suitable ones, but they all required 6 months rent upfront plus a 3-month deposit. Calculating, I realized I would need at least 10,000 yuan for rent. I felt troubled immediately. I only had a few thousand yuan left on me, and last month's salary wouldn't be paid until the day after tomorrow. Even if it were paid, I couldn't use it all for rent. I needed to reserve some for living expenses. Reluctantly, I had to lower my standards and look for shared accommodations with lower rents. Time passed quietly as I searched. When I snapped out of it, the night had already enveloped the city in its lights. I rubbed my face heavily to alleviate the tiredness from staring at the computer for a long time. I needed to take a break and then continue looking for a place to stay. I couldn't end up homeless. I'm already at my lowest point. Gazing blankly out the window, my soul once again found itself in solitude amidst the myriad lights of the city. In this moment, I truly yearned for a home of my own in this city where I had survived for over 2 years, and for a woman who would wait for me to return home every day. Farewell to the vagabond life, farewell to the loneliness of the night, farewell to the bitterness of existence. After a while, the sound of the door opening outside reached my ears. I knew Mitsai had returned. But at this moment, I could face her with a clear conscience because I had finally kept my promise to her. I would be moving out from here shortly. Carrying her handbag and wearing freshly changed slippers, Mitsai stood at my door and looked at the packed luggage, asking me, "Have you found a place?" "Don't worry, whether I find one or not, I'll be moving out tonight," I replied, subconsciously feeling that Mitsai would appreciate this answer. "Oh," Mitsai responded, but she didn't leave. After a moment, as if remembering something, she asked me, "Did you buy some insecticide powder for the bathroom today?" Compared to moving, being forced by the boss to go to Hangdian to find Liao, this was really trivial, so I had truly overlooked it. Apologizing to Mitsai, I said, "I'm sorry, I forgot." "You can buy some yourself if you don't want to go out. You can also buy it online, very convenient." Mitsai's expression turned displeased. "This is something you promised me. How can you be so irresponsible?" I had been frustrated all day today, and I still hadn't found a place to stay. How could I be in a good mood? My tone became heavier as I replied, "Can responsibility feed you? You mention this every day. Isn't it annoying?" Mitsai hadn't expected my reaction to be so intense. She hesitated for a moment, then frowned and nodded at me, saying, "Fine, repay me the money you owe, then. There's no need for me to be responsible for you." I fell silent for a while, once again succumbing to the despair of having no money. After a long time, I spoke with a slightly subdued voice, "You said as long as I move out, I don't have to rush to repay you." "Who cares what I said? It's only natural to repay debts," Mitsai said coldly. "How can you drive me to a dead end like this when we've been living under the same roof for several days? Is it necessary?" I said, burying my head, unsure of what I was feeling. Mitsai disdainfully smiled and said, "I'm not driving you to a dead end. You've been working for so many years, why don't you have any savings? You should understand, the person driving you to a dead end is yourself." Mitsai's words mercilessly exposed the deepest scar in my soul, and in an instant, feelings of inferiority and shame made me feel utterly ashamed. In my confusion, I saw the guitar I had placed in the corner. Originally, Jianwei had specially ordered this guitar from the music shop for my birthday, using very high-quality materials. Its value was far more than 10,000. Looking at this guitar, I once again experienced the pain of things changing while people remain the same. I stood up and brought the guitar to Mitsai, handing it to her, saying, "This guitar can cover my debt to you. If you sell it to someone who knows its value, it's definitely worth more than 10,000. Without waiting for Mitsai's response to whether she accepted the guitar as repayment, I dragged my luggage, not daring to look at this apartment anymore, and with my head lowered, I walked out. Chapter 24, The Cost of Growth. Having left that old residential area far behind, I dragged my luggage along the city streets, walking for quite a while until I found a stone bench in a plaza where I could rest. Placing my luggage beside the bench, I lit a cigarette and sat down, watching the neon lights shimmering against the tall buildings, feeling a surge of panic and uncertainty rising within me. Hastily averting my gaze from the lights and shadows of the city, I looked up at the sky, searching for the city of the sky that had long been detached from my being. I didn't know when, but a group of square dancing aunties with fans had arrived at the plaza, and the music they brought drowned me out, making it even harder to see that city of the sky. Perhaps it had already hidden behind the moon, or perhaps it had been blown away by the wind that had just passed by. But tonight, I still had to find a place to rest in this city. I took out my phone from my pocket and dialed Robin's number. He lived near the train station, which was convenient since I had to take a train to Hangdian tomorrow. So, I decided to stay with him for the night. Amidst the noisy background, Robin answered the phone. "Zhao Yang, do you need something? Are you still performing at the bar?" "Yeah, our band is about to go on stage." "Oh. I want to stay at your place tonight. Is that okay?" Robin chuckled and said, "No problem at all. Come to the bar now. I'll finish work soon, and then we can go back together. I'll just go directly to your place." "I won't go to the bar. Come on, I'll treat you to a drink. I still have several vouchers left." "I really won't go," I said, then hung up the phone, leaving Robin to ponder why. After leaving the plaza, I took a taxi directly to Robin's place. It was still early when I arrived, so I went to the train station to buy a train ticket from Suzhou to Yiwu for tomorrow morning. It was almost midnight when Robin returned from the bar, but I had already fallen asleep in the hallway, leaning against my luggage. Robin woke me up, complaining, "You've changed recently. You didn't want to go to the bar, so you'd rather sleep in the hallway waiting." I just smiled without saying a word as Robin opened the door. He asked me, "Did you move out?" "Yeah, I still haven't found a suitable place. I have to go to Hangdian on business tomorrow, so I thought I'd stay with you for the night." "Sure, stay as long as you want." After saying this, he looked at the luggage on the ground and asked, "What about that awesome guitar of yours?" Feeling a pang of sadness, after all, it was a guitar that had accompanied me for years, but I casually said to Robin, "I used it to settle a debt." Robin widened his eyes and sighed, "Settled a debt? You're really in a sorry state. Several times before, when I wanted to borrow it just for fun, you treasured it as if it were gold. Now you've used it to settle a debt. Let's not talk about that. Help me move the luggage inside." Robin lived in a small attic on the top floor, with only one narrow room behind the room. There was a relatively large balcony with a shared bathroom and a clothesline. The living conditions were not good. Turning on the light, I first saw a few leather jackets hanging on the rack, a guitar in the corner, several pairs of Martin boots on the shoe rack, and a few boxes. There was nothing else except for the scattered beer cans on the table, which didn't make it too messy. After arranging the luggage, Robin took out 2 instant noodle packets from somewhere, one for me and one for himself, as a late-night snack. After a short while, we finished eating the noodles, and the empty noodle boxes were placed upside down on the flower pot below the balcony. A few cans of beer were placed beside us as we sat on the railing of the balcony. Opening a can of beer each, Robin and I clinked our cans together. Tilting our heads back, we finished half of the beer in an instant. "Zhao Yang, you seem quite depressed lately. Did something happen? You don't even go to the bar anymore," Robin asked. "I live carefree and easy, what could possibly depress me?" I said, finishing the rest of the beer in my can with a vacant gaze fixed on the distance. In the distance, the lights on Maxwell's giant billboard were still blinking in the early hours of this deep night. Robin didn't press further, and we both gazed into the distance, feeling the same pain. As strugglers on the margins of this city, some sorrows were shared without needing to be spoken. The wind, carrying the night's chill, whistled past us. Robin and I remained seated on the railing, looking out into the distance, and we each drank another can of beer. In the quiet of the night, one tends to think more. Robin seemed to recall someone and tore open another beer can. However, I stopped him. Drinking too much wasn't good. Yesterday, I almost jumped into the moat because I drank too much. Missing a woman? I chuckled and asked Robin. "Yeah, a little alcohol always makes me miss her," Robin said straightforwardly. I knew Robin had once had a deeply loving girlfriend. I nudged him and said, "Do you still have her photo?" "Let me see." Robin took out his wallet, extracted a photo from it, and handed it to me. In the light from afar, I saw the woman in the photo. She had good features, exuding intelligence and elegance. Robin seemed lost in thought for a while before he said to me, "We broke up almost 3 years ago. She's probably married by now." "Why did you break up?" I inquired. "She comes from a family of educators. Both her parents are university professors, well educated. I'm just a musician, with no stable income, living day by day." I didn't want to hold her back, Robin said with a wry smile. "So, you left her and came to Suzhou?" Robin nodded. After a long pause, he said, "Actually, she followed me to Suzhou later, and we lived together for another 6 months." "Why did you break up then?" I asked, puzzled. "Her parents contacted me. They said they had arranged a job for her at a university in Beijing, and they asked me to let her return," Robin said, his tone becoming somber. "And you just let her go?" "I did. I told her I had another woman." "Did she believe you?" Robin chuckled. "She definitely didn't." "And then?" "I hired a prostitute, right here in this room, in front of her." Robin didn't continue, but he still had a smile on his face. Beneath that smile, I saw a heart that had already died. I sighed heavily and said, "Why did you have to do something so extreme? If I didn't, she wouldn't have left. Better to endure short-term pain than prolong the agony." Robin tilted his head back and drank another can of beer. Some of the liquid spilled down his neck and onto his shirt. I fell silent. Although Robin talked about it lightly, I saw a love torn apart by helplessness. I knew Robin would never forget that woman. Forget about me. Let's see a photo of your girlfriend. Robin pushed back and Sadie also took out a photo of Janway from the compartment of my wallet and handed it to Robin. In fact, neither of us wanted to forget the past because it was too precious. The light across the table was dimming. Robin lit a lighter and examined Janway's photo. Your girlfriend is beautiful, exceptionally beautiful. Upon hearing the word beautiful, suddenly the image of my female tenant appeared in my mind again. But this didn't surprise me, because in my life, I've never seen a woman more beautiful than Mikai. In just an instant, I returned to reality. I looked at Janway's familiar yet unfamiliar face in the photo with a pang in my heart. I thought, it won't be long before she marries Shangchen. Robin returned Janway's photo to me and asked, "What about you? Why did you break up with her?" I reminisced for a while before saying, "She called me a year after she went to the United States and told me she wanted to break up." "Why did she want to break up with you?" Robin asked. "I don't know." "She didn't say," I replied with the same smile Robin had just now. "You didn't ask her?" I nodded. I really didn't ask Janway why she wanted to break up with me because I felt, if Janway wanted to say it, she wouldn't need me to ask. Perhaps deep down in my subconscious, I didn't believe that we could last forever, and there would inevitably come a day of parting. So, what could I do about an expected outcome? "Aren't you afraid of any misunderstandings between you two?" Robin reminded me. I paused for a moment and said, "What misunderstandings could there be? Love is just a fleeting cloud. Let's not talk about this. Bring the guitar over. Let's play a song and forget about all this mess." Robin fetched the guitar from inside the room and tuned it. A melody drifted into the night air. It was Li Zongxing's The Cost of Love. Let's go, everyone has to learn to grow up on their own. Let's go, life inevitably involves pain and struggle. Let's go, find a home for your heart. We've shed tears of sadness, we've experienced heartbreak. This is the cost of love. Perhaps occasionally, I still think of her, occasionally, I can't help but miss her. Let's just treat her as an old friend, let her make me sad, let her make me miss her. But there's no longer any spark in my heart. Let the past be blown away by the wind. Our voices carried the song into the air, filled with vicissitudes. But I still didn't understand if the cost of love was just shedding tears and experiencing heartbreak. But I knew, the cost of growth was those loves that had already passed with the flow of time. In this night that should be seen through, I still regretted my lost love and regretted Robin and the unnamed Beijing girl. The next morning, I boarded the train heading south to Yiwu. After arriving in Yiwu, I still had to transfer to Hengdian. I knew I had to do something for myself this time. If Lu Yao could agree to come back and help with the opening of the Gucci store, my career would take its first step forward. Being promoted to head of the planning and copywriting department would also bring my monthly salary to over 10,000 yuan. Perhaps life would stabilize thereafter. Sitting on the southbound train, I said to myself for the first time, "Work hard, Zhao Yang. Don't let anyone underestimate you anymore." Chapter 25, The Night in Dream Valley. Upon the noon hour, the train arrived at Yiwu, where I hastily indulged in a midday meal at the station before boarding the express to Hengdian. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I finally reached Hengdian town. I settled into a family inn on North Wanqing Street. Only then did I manage to dial the phone number Lu Yao had left for me. Perhaps Lu Yao was engrossed in her performance, for she did not promptly answer my call. I resorted to sending her a text message, informing her of my arrival in Hengdian and urging her to promptly come to my aid. Yet, Lu Yao did not reply to my message for quite some time. Lacking the mood to venture out, I merely reclined upon the inn's bed, perusing through a magazine. My room's window faced westward. After a while, I beheld the sunset in the dusk, with the gentle sunlight casting its warmth upon my blanket. The air was imbued with a languid fragrance, prompting a yawn from me before I drifted off to sleep momentarily. Upon awakening, the sky had dimmed considerably. Finally, Lu Yao responded to my message. She directed me to find her at the Imperial Garden within the Ming and Qing Palace, where their troupe was filming. Several renowned figures were also present, promising to procure autographs for me. Though I desired to go, I found myself short on cash. The expenses of my business trip needed reimbursement upon return. Spending over 100 yuan to meet a few celebrities seemed extravagant. Regrettably, I informed her via text message that I would wait for her outside the scenic area. As twilight descended, numerous extras lingered outside, awaiting summons from the film crew. Their eyes betrayed a numb longing, reflecting the harshness of life. Yet, nobody is fated to endure such agony, yet there are many who struggle and suffer, myself included, as well as these extras awaiting their chance. I squatted beside one extra, engaging in conversation to pass the time while waiting for Lu Yao. As darkness gradually enveloped the sky, several vehicles belonging to the film crew departed the scenic area. Yet, Lu Yao's figure was nowhere to be seen. Doubts began to stir within me. Could this troublesome woman be engaged in night scenes tonight? Amidst my skepticism, I spotted Lu Yao at the entrance, clad in Qing Dynasty court attire, seemingly yet to change from her costume. She stood by the ticket office, scanning the surroundings. I rose and approached Lu Yao, finally catching her attention. She smiled and ran towards me, as if relieved. Lu Yao linked her arm with mine, expressing, "Finally, you've traveled back in time." I gently withdrew her arm, saying, "Madam, please restrain yourself." Lu Yao once again linked her arm with mine, inquiring cheerfully, "Xiaoyang, speak truthfully, what brings you all this way to Hengdian to seek this palace?" "Surely not to be your consort," I quipped, pushing Lu Yao aside once more. "In that case, shall I appoint you as a eunuch in the inner palace?" Lu Yao teased, pinching my waist, yet her face still bore a smile, appearing in high spirits. The pain from her pinch prompted me to sternly reprimand her, "Cease this nonsense. Focus on your acting and comport yourself properly." "What happens if I don't comport myself properly?" My expression turned grave as I retorted. Lu Yao burst into laughter, remarking, "Xiaoyang, I enjoy witnessing your solemn demeanor, yet your words are those of a rogue." Accompanying Lu Yao to her hotel to change clothes, the two of us strolled along North Wanqing Street. Although Lu Yao had yet to achieve fame in the entertainment industry, passers-by still cast glances her way. I believed it was only a matter of time before she gained recognition. Not only was she beautiful, but she also possessed the aura of a star, and her acting skills were superb, as I unfortunately experienced firsthand. At this moment, I did not mention the purpose of this trip to Lu Yao. I felt it would be a difficult and mood-dampening topic for her. Instead, I opted to savor the relaxation and freedom before nightfall. It was my first time in Hengdian, and as we walked the streets, I couldn't help but admire the scenery. Lu Yao, however, was more interested in the street snacks, occasionally asking me what I fancied. As the crowd moved towards the end of the street, Lu Yao suddenly grabbed my arm and pointed to a barbecue restaurant on the roadside, saying, "Xiaoyang, let's go eat barbecue there." I glanced at the crowded restaurant and remarked, "It's too crowded. Let's eat elsewhere. Many people means it's delicious. Don't you know? This barbecue restaurant is famous." When Fan Bingbing came to Hengdian to film, she queued here for over 20 minutes just to taste their barbecue, Lu Yao said, dragging me towards the restaurant. "Wait for 20 minutes. Is Fan Bingbing that foolish?" I stood my ground, not because I objected to eating barbecue, but because I disliked waiting. "She's not foolish, she's a foodie," Lu Yao corrected me. I remained unmoved. Suddenly, with excitement on her face, Lu Yao looked behind me and exclaimed, "Hey! It's Fan Bingbing." I instinctively turned my head, and Lu Yao took the opportunity to pull me into the restaurant, teasing, "Look at you, eagerly turning your head. Did you strain your neck?" "I'd be happy if it were Fan Bingbing who strained my neck," I retorted, only to be once again duped by her acting skills. "Pathetic," Lu Yao said, pushing me into a chair and then joining the queue to order. During the meal, night had silently descended upon us. We drank Sprite and ate barbecue, both enjoying the meal. After taking a big sip of Sprite and wiping the sweat from my forehead, I asked Lu Yao, after eating so much, "Why can't I taste the flavor of Fan Bingbing?" Lu Yao gave me a disdainful look and replied, "Are you silly? You're eating barbecue, not roasted Fan Bingbing." I was speechless for a moment before saying, "Did you think I didn't know?" Lu Yao smirked triumphantly, saying, "I love seeing you helpless. Hurry up and eat. After we finish, let's take a walk in Dream Valley." At 7:30 in the evening, Lu Yao and I arrived at Dream Valley, one of the scenic spots in Hengdian. Upon entering the park, we discovered that the night had transformed it into a world of light and shadow. Despite not being peak tourist season, it was still bustling. After wandering around, we finally sat on a wooden bench under the Ferris wheel to rest. I closed my eyes to relax. I wasn't particularly fond of the dazzling lights here. When I opened my eyes, I found Lu Yao also had her eyes closed. I nudged Lu Yao and asked, "Why are you closing your eyes?" Lu Yao, still with closed eyes but a dreamy expression, replied, I imagine this place as a stage surrounded by lights, with me as the shining star standing at the center of the stage. I always knew what Lu Yao's dream was, and I understood how crucial opportunities were for a newcomer fresh out of film school in pursuit of dreams. Lu Yao and I were worlds apart. She enjoyed the mesmerizing lights here, while I was infatuated with the crystalline clarity of another city. The Ferris wheel continued to carry people of all kinds in the air, and I watched with fascination. At some point, Lu Yao had wrapped her arm around mine and nestled against me, and I found myself lost in her rare tenderness. "I'm happy when I'm with you," Lu Yao said softly, snuggling closer to me. This time, I didn't push Lu Yao away. In fact, it wasn't bad to have her rely on me like this. At this moment, instead of an overflow of passion, there was warmth and dependence. I seemed to rely on this warmth, holding on to Lu Yao tightly. I breathed in the faint scent of her perfume, mingled with the coolness of the night, momentarily clear amid the haze. A warm tear fell onto my hand, and Lu Yao hugged me tighter, choking back tears as she said, "Zhao Yang, I am really tired and helpless here. Every day, I have to watch others' expressions, afraid of hidden rules, afraid of the scheming within the crew. Only by leaning on you do I feel any sense of reliance." Lu Yao's words filled me with a sense of unease. I myself was teetering on the brink in the storm. Where could she find reliance? I had no words to comfort her, so I simply wiped the tears from her face, offering her my body as a support. There was nothing more I could do for her. The wind, which had been blowing all along, finally abated. Lu Yao released me from her embrace, looking at me and asking, "You must have something to tell me coming all this way, right? Today's just the third update, isn't it? Falling short of 4,500 fresh flowers is quite a gap. I was planning to delay until 12 o'clock, but the combat power of the computer station buddies is still a bit weak. Tomorrow, I'll check out the buddies on the mobile station." IVE finished writing a whole book, only to suddenly realize today that there are still many people reading books on the mobile station on 17K. Tomorrow, I'll recommend over 70 on the mobile station and add an extra chapter. Are the buddies on the mobile station stronger than those on the computer station? Let's find out tomorrow. Knowing there's a mobile station suddenly feels like I've found a source of fun. From now on, I'll instigate competition between the mobile station and the computer station every day. Chapter 26, Will We Be Together? The Ferris wheel behind us ceased its rotation, and another group of people took our place. After a while, under Lu Yao's gaze, I nodded and said, "Well, there is indeed something I came to Hengdian to discuss with you." Lu Yao wore a somewhat expected expression and remarked, "You certainly didn't come to find me because you missed me. You wouldn't even think of me. Don't say that. It makes me feel like a villain, only reaching out to you when I need something." Lu Yao smiled and, teasingly, asked, "So, have you missed me these past few days?" Here we go again. All right. I won't tease you anymore. Tell me, what did you come to me for? I remained silent for a moment before asking, "Do you have any free time lately?" The crew just started filming, so I'm pretty much occupied with work every day, Lu Yao replied. So busy. I sighed. Lu Yao nodded and said, "Yes, the filming schedule is quite intense lately. There are even 2 night scenes scheduled for tonight. I have to return to the set soon. I can't stay with you for long." My heart sank. I knew the likelihood of returning empty-handed this time was high, but I didn't want to force Lu Yao. After a moment of silence, I said to her, "Then you should go back. It's not something very important that I came to find you for. If you don't have time, forget about it." Lu Yao checked her watch and said to me, "I have to go." I smiled and said, "Go ahead." Before leaving, Lu Yao asked me, "Where are you staying?" "At Shaoli Guest House." "Oh, then I'm off. Bye, Zhao Yang." Lu Yao waved to me and then hurried away. The Ferris wheel continued to turn, but suddenly I found myself alone, lying on the bench, not wanting to return to the hotel. Although I had promised my boss that I would make this matter happen, I didn't want to pressure Lu Yao. Since she truly had no free time, I resigned myself to fate. The reason I gave up so easily was because I understood Lu Yao's situation. She was just a newcomer in the crew, often having to act according to others' whims. Moreover, with the tight filming schedule, it was indeed difficult for her to find any free time. I couldn't possibly ask the entire crew to stop working just to accommodate her. In fact, I should be happy for Lu Yao. The fact that she couldn't free up her schedule indicated that her role in this film was significant. Perhaps she could truly become famous with this role. Back at the hotel, after taking a hot shower to relieve some fatigue, I lay on the bed, worrying about my and Fong Yuan's career prospects. I hoped that Chen Jingming was making a mountain out of a molehill, and Gucci might not necessarily terminate our cooperation over this matter. I couldn't fall asleep, lost in anxious thoughts. Time passed into the early hours of the morning, and the world gradually bid farewell to its clamor, sinking into silence. Walking to the window, I opened it, lit a cigarette, and gazed at the gray outside, emptying my mind once again, unwilling to think about anything. Suddenly, a doorbell rang. Initially, I thought it was from the neighboring room, but upon closer listening, I realized it was from my own room. I was puzzled. Normally, a guest house like this wouldn't offer any special services. So who could be at my door at this late hour? Looking through the peephole, I saw Lu Yao standing outside. I opened the door, and Lu Yao smiled at me. Surprised, aren't you? Only surprised, not pleased. I was indeed surprised by Lu Yao's unexpected visit at this hour. Lu Yao entered the room, put her makeup and toiletries in the bathroom, and then said to me, "I just finished filming and came to find you right away. I'll be staying here tonight." "Do you really need to?" I stood at the bathroom door and asked. "Yes. But tonight is not possible. You can't engage in sexual activity for a month after menstruation. You should know this basic physiological knowledge, Zhao Yang," Lu Yao said as she removed her makeup. "You never change your mischievous ways. Coming here so brazenly, have you ever thought how difficult this night will be for me? Figure out a solution for yourself," Lu Yao said nonchalantly. I didn't say anything more. I reclined on the bed, gazing at the television, while Lu Yao, having completed her ablutions, slipped into the covers beside me, nestling into my embrace. She implored, "Cease your television viewing." "Why abstain? What else is there to occupy oneself with?" I persisted, my attention fixed on the screen. Lu Yao located the remote and silenced the television. A solemnity enveloped the room as she earnestly inquired, "Speak, what brings you here this time?" "It's nothing of great import," I replied, reaching for the remote once more. "You underestimate me. Venturing from Suzhou to Hengdian just for a night's rest with me, is that truly worth it?" Lu Yao remarked, wresting the remote from my grasp. "I didn't come solely for you, did I?" "In that case, cease your equivocation and elucidate your purpose," she urged, her tone tinged with reproach. Under Lu Yao's persistent questioning, I finally divulged, "Gucci is currently in discussions with our department store regarding setting up a dedicated counter. A female representative from Gucci viewed the promotional posters you created for our mall and deemed your image aligned with Gucci's brand positioning. She hopes you can shoot a series of promotional posters for Gucci, in conjunction with the store's opening campaign." After concluding, I added, "If your schedule doesn't permit, never mind." "Does your company place great emphasis on collaboration with Gucci?" Lu Yao inquired. "We already have 7 internationally renowned luxury brands in residence, and with Gucci, that makes 8, elevating us to the standard of a top-tier department store." "So yes, it's quite significant," I responded. "You, always so reticent. Why withhold such significant matters unless probed?" Lu Yao's tone bore a hint of reproach. "If you're unavailable, my words are futile. Prioritize your work, there's no need to force it," I replied after a moment of silence. Lu Yao asked, "How many days will the shoot take?" "It should be completed in 2 days, possibly even 1. We're still awaiting details from Gucci," I informed. Lu Yao nodded, saying, "That's manageable. I've already discussed with the director before coming here. He's willing to grant me a 2-day leave. Coordinate with Gucci to finalize the shooting schedule." A weight lifted off my chest upon hearing this. I reminded Lu Yao once more, "Don't strain yourself, alright?" "I don't mind a bit of strain for your sake," she replied. The night deepened, shrouding the room in the glow of a faint night lamp. Lu Yao remained nestled in my embrace, neither of us seeming weary. "Zhao Yang, do you think we'll end up together?" Lu Yao's sudden query left me momentarily stunned before I responded, "We inhabit different worlds. Your future is bright, while I've merely drifted through life. Our union tonight is driven more by emptiness and physical needs. Perhaps. Embarking on this path, I've ceased to anticipate love," she murmured. At the mention of love, I felt a profound sense of emptiness and unfamiliarity, momentarily forgetting I was conversing with Lu Yao. We lapsed into silence, grappling with the inevitability of our disparate paths. Though we lay together, it was clear our lives would eventually diverge, leaving us unable to see each other at the crossroads. Liao, let's not continue like this. Otherwise, it will burden us in the future. After a long pause, I finally spoke. Liao held me tighter, remaining silent for a while before calmly stating, "Yes, after tonight, let's just be friends." That night, Liao and I shared the same bed, her grip firm as she slept peacefully. I understood she sought not a fling or a boyfriend, but simply someone to lean on, preventing herself from sinking in the weighty realities. And what of me? Perhaps I yearned for a woman with whom I could lead a conventional life, eager to entrust my heart to her for solace, but where is she? Remember, across the river, I sought her, yet she was absent. Amidst the dim lights, I searched, yet she was nowhere to be found. Chapter 27, Don't Let Me See You in Suzhou. The following morning, I departed from Hengdian and returned to Suzhou in the afternoon. Upon arriving, I headed straight to the office, briefing manager Chen Jingming on the situation. The matter of shooting promotional posters for Gucci was resolved following Liao's commitment. As the evening approached, I lingered in the office, hesitant to leave. Departing from the dwelling I had occupied for over 2 years, a sense of aimlessness gripped me relentlessly. Indeed, habit is a fearsome thing. My current anguish stems entirely from habit, accustomed to the love once bestowed by Jianwei, accustomed to the warmth and solace the house provided. I don't quite understand what has transpired over these years. Why do I always lose the most precious aspects of life, yet gain so little in return? Perhaps I know the answer, but I'm unwilling to admit it. So, I console myself, at least there's some hope on the professional front now. Progress in my career will undoubtedly make life better in the future. Therefore, I must prepare myself emotionally to embrace this new phase of life. Leaving the office, I didn't go in search of a new house. Instead, I decided to stay temporarily with Robin. At least, during the lonely and despondent nights, two men in similar circumstances could chat about music, about the absurdity of life. Wandering the streets alone, thoroughly bored, I decided to head to the bar to find Robin and have a few drinks. Without hesitation, I hailed a taxi and headed to the bar where Robin performed regularly. Arriving at the bar, it was the familiar sight of dim lights and vibrant colors, the familiar sight of swaying bodies. I found a relatively quiet corner and sat down. Robin approached with a few bottles of beer, settling down across from me. He handed me a bottle and remarked, "I thought you had sworn off this place. Why the return?" Glancing around, I joked, "Just here to soak in some decadent vibes. Been feeling a bit too self-satisfied lately." Robin clinked his bottle against mine, laughing, "So, you've grown accustomed to hardship. What's wrong with a bit of success in life?" I chuckled in return, raising my bottle, "It's the essence of life, my friend. You'll come to realize it eventually. Cheers." Robin shrugged, also taking a sip. Then he asked, "Did you go to Hengdian to see Liao yesterday?" I kept it under wraps. "How did you find out?" I asked, surprised. "I chatted briefly with Liao on WeChat today. She mentioned your visit," he replied. "I did go to Hengdian, but purely for work reasons. Gucci wants Liao specifically to shoot promotional posters for their counter at our department store. So, the onerous task falls on me," I explained, taking another sip of beer. "No wonder Liao seemed delighted." "Perhaps she initially thought you came to see her on purpose," Robin remarked. "Even if I did come specifically to see her, it would have to be on a weekend," I added. Robin nodded, without pressing further. After finishing another bottle of beer and exchanging a few more words, Robin left. It was time for his performance. More people streamed into the bar seeking entertainment. I remained in my corner, drinking sip by sip, drifting in and out of reverie. The night spent with Liao seemed to linger in my mind, evoking a sense of melancholy and emotion both perplexing and undeniably real. On stage, Robin and another resident singer performed his own compositions. Applause intermittently filled the air, finally drawing my attention. I tapped my fingers along with the music, absorbed in the rhythm. Robin was, in fact, a talented folk singer. However, his principles prevented him from writing commercially viable pop songs or participating in ubiquitous talent shows. Hence, he remained obscure, performing quietly in bars for a meager living. But he seemed indifferent to this hardship, often saying, "Playing music doesn't necessarily have to bring fame and fortune, but it must adhere to the convictions in one's heart." After spending many years together, I still didn't know what his convictions were, but that didn't diminish my appreciation for him. Amidst the music, my phone vibrated in my pocket. Without checking the caller ID, I answered. It was Fan Yuan on the line, seemingly aware of the bar's clamor. He remarked, "Zhao Yang, back to hanging out in bars again?" "Focus on your honeymoon, don't worry about me," I replied, rising from my seat, swaying to the rhythm of the music along with the crowd. "Which bar are you at?" "I'll come find you," he inquired. "Ace Bar." "Come over, drinks on me," I invited. "Then you better prepare more cash. Yin Yan is coming too, along with Jianwei and Xiangchen," Fan Yuan added. Hearing Jianwei and Xiangchen's names sent a shiver down my spine. After a moment of confusion, I cursed, "Are you freaking out of your mind, bringing them along? Why so worked up? It's been years since the five of us got together. Besides, you have a girlfriend now, don't you? Let's gather and reminisce, leave behind those messy affairs," Fan Yuan reasoned. "Who told you I have a girlfriend?" I questioned. "Jianwei did. If you didn't have a girlfriend, I wouldn't have brought Jianwei and Xiangchen to make you uncomfortable." "I have my limits," Fan Yuan replied. Only then did I recall the lie I told Jianwei on Fan Yuan's wedding day, claiming that Mei was my girlfriend. Now, that lie felt like a stone I had lifted, only to have it crash down on me. There was no escaping it. Lost in thought, Fan Yuan continued, "Actually, Xiangchen suggested we get together. We've been brothers since college, let's not let those relationship issues sour things. It's nice for everyone to be paired up now, isn't it?" I didn't know what to say, so I remained silent. Fan Yuan reminded me once more, "Remember to invite your girlfriend. According to Jianwei, she's stunning. If Jianwei thinks so, Yan Yan and I are eager to see for ourselves." Before I could respond, Fan Yuan hung up. Hearing the dial tone, I was dumbfounded. The bar remained lively, but I sat there uneasily. Fan Yuan had made his intentions clear, and I couldn't bail out now. The problem lay in my reckless lie about Mei being my girlfriend. At the time, I felt like a drowning man clutching at straws, seeking refuge. So, I understood my actions then, but what should I do now? After vacillating for what felt like an eternity, I finally decided to call Mei. If she had any sense of loyalty left, she would surely come to my aid. Pulling out my phone, I found Mei's number, but hesitated to press the dial button. I remembered our argument 2 days ago when I left, leaving the guitar behind in my embarrassment, almost like a cowardly escape. Was it too unmanly to call her now? Forget it. In her eyes, I'm just scum. What's the point of worrying about dignity? I muttered to myself, then, with the reputation of scum, I pressed the dial button with newfound courage. As the call connected, I felt a pang of nervousness. This anxiety was justified. I feared Mei would ridicule my lack of integrity and refuse to help in my time of need. After a moment, Mei's voice, devoid of warmth, came through the line. "Why are you calling me?" "Seeking help in dire straits," I replied. "Dire straits? Are you planning to jump into a river or lake again?" she retorted. Her sarcasm caught me off guard. After a pause, I said, "Not jumping into any rivers this time." "Remember at my friend's wedding, when I told a woman you were my girlfriend? You have the nerve to bring that up," she snapped. I sighed in agreement with Mei's words. "Yeah. This lie has caused me trouble. My friend wants to meet you, and they're on their way here now. Please come to Ace Bar and save me." "You're beyond redemption," Mei retorted. "Don't mock me. This is urgent. If you don't come, I'll be utterly humiliated," I pleaded. "Who cares?" she replied coldly. "Please, I'm begging you. Just this once?" I pleaded urgently. Unmoved, Mei responded, "Wish you the best of luck." Enraged, I snapped, "You're like a heartless nun. Do you have any sense of loyalty? Damn it. Don't let me see you in Suzhou again." The line went dead, leaving me dumbfounded, listening to the dial tone. Chapter 28, Behaving with Tail Tucked. After Mei decisively hung up my call, I harbored no more illusions about her. The consequences of my own actions must be borne by myself in the end. In truth, Mei's reluctance to offer help was entirely understandable. It was my own unreasonable threat of not wanting to see her in Suzhou that truly bordered on rudeness. Feeling at a loss, I scratched my head, truly wishing to leave this bar. Deep down, I didn't want to face Jianwei and Xiangchen. This reluctance was merely an attempt to make myself feel better, yet tonight I couldn't escape. For to flee would only signify that I couldn't truly let go of Jianwei. After a mere 10 minutes, a group of 4 entered the bar. Fang Yuan and Yan Yan led the way, followed by Xiang Chen and Jianwei. They approached me, chatting and laughing, while I wished I could find a hole to hide in. Jianwei was dressed in Chanel, with a new Hermes bag in hand, her entire attire exuding luxury that made me dare not look directly at her. I quickly averted my gaze to Fang Yuan and Yan Yan, lighting a cigarette to mask my unease. Fang Yuan and Yan Yan sat on the sofa to my left, while Jianwei and Xiang Chen took seats to the right. I remained in the middle, as before. Fang Yuan and Yan Yan glanced around and simultaneously asked me, "Where's your girlfriend?" "She's busy tonight, let's just enjoy ourselves," I responded casually. Yan Yan frowned, saying, "Don't be a spoilsport. Call her again later, we can wait." Glaring at Yan Yan, I retorted, "Why are you being so stubborn? If I say she's busy, then she's busy. Why are you so insistent? Quit bullshitting, hurry up and call your girlfriend. I want to see what my future sister-in-law looks like." Fang Yuan kicked me and said. Xiang Chen chimed in, "Zhao Yang, don't be a killjoy. We all make time for each other. Invite your girlfriend out, let's all have fun. We've known each other for so long, it's no fun if you're not here." I glanced at Jianwei. At this moment, deliberately keeping my distance from her only revealed my inability to let go. So I said, "I think it's fun. Jianwei and I haven't seen each other for over 3 years. Old acquaintances become strangers. Isn't that right, Jianwei?" Jianwei, who had been silent since entering, looked at me and asked, "What did you call me?" With Jianwei's question, the carefree demeanor I had just assumed crumbled, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond to her. Fang Yuan hurriedly came to my rescue, saying to Jianwei, "Zhao Yang didn't call you wrong. Strictly speaking, you are like his sister now. When you and Xiang Chen get married, it'll be even more appropriate." Jianwei glanced at Fang Yuan and said, "Why are you getting so excited? Did I say he called me wrong? I just didn't hear clearly earlier." Fang Yuan awkwardly smiled, and I remained silent. Meanwhile, Xiang Chen pulled Jianwei into his arms and whispered something in her ear that others couldn't hear. But this intimate gesture stabbed at my heart. At this moment, I finally understood Xiang Chen's feelings when Jianwei and I were together. Displaying affection openly, I raised my beer and took a sip, feeling a desire to leave. I knew that as long as I still loved Jianwei, such gatherings would be torture for me. Yet, in Xiang Chen's, and even Fang Yuan and Yan Yan's eyes, I had already let go of Jianwei. After all, it had been over 2 years, and I had a new girlfriend. The waiter brought the drinks that Fang Yuan and the others had ordered. As they started drinking, Yan Yan leaned towards me and said softly, "Zhao Yang, we know you have a girlfriend now, and we're genuinely happy for you. We were worried you couldn't get over Jianwei, but now it seems our worries were unnecessary." Bitterness filled my heart. At this moment, even if I let everyone know I couldn't let go, what good would it do? It was better to maintain this lie, to put my friends' minds at ease. Yan Yan pushed my silent self again and said, "Hurry up and call your girlfriend, introduce her to us, we'll have one more shopping buddy in the future." I forced a smile and said, "Next time, she's really busy today." Disappointment flashed across Yan Yan's face. Just then, almost all the eyes in the bar suddenly focused on a graceful figure approaching. Her figure was exquisite, her gait graceful and charming. Under the flickering lights, I couldn't see her face clearly, but that didn't hinder me from recognizing her beauty. As she walked towards me, the constantly shifting lights finally illuminated her face. I was so shocked that I almost slipped off the sofa. Who else could it be but Miai? Only she possessed such allure, drawing so many eyes to her. Miai spotted me and walked over gracefully. I quickly stood up, pulling her aside before she reached everyone, lowering my voice to ask, "Why are you here? Didn't you say, don't let you see me in Suzhou? I've come to see what consequences there will be if you do." Miai looked at me with a half-smile. "So, you've come to pick a fight with me, not to help?" I said, my expression darkening. Miai looked at me and said, "You're the one who threatened me. How can you say I've come to you for trouble?" "Well, now that I'm here, go ahead." I felt like a snake held by Miai's grip. Afraid she would expose me in front of everyone, I had to soften my tone and say, "I was just venting. Let's not dwell on it, okay?" Miai disdainfully remarked, "Where did your arrogance just disappear to?" "Sister, I was wrong. I will definitely behave humbly from now on." "Are you begging for mercy?" "Yes." Say it again. Feeling a wave of powerlessness in my heart, unable to resist, I gritted my teeth and said, I was wrong. I will definitely behave humbly from now on. Meanwhile, Fang Yuan shouted at me, Zhao Yang, what secrets are you whispering about? Hurry up and introduce your girlfriend to us. Coming. I responded, then turned to Miai and asked, are you calmed down now? Miai remained silent, seemingly deliberately leaving me uneasy. I realized how difficult this woman was to deal with, stubborn and unyielding. Lowering my voice once again, I said, say something, will you? Remember to buy insecticide tomorrow, the cockroaches in the bathroom are as annoying as you. Miai said before walking away to join the others. It took me a moment to process. Was she letting me off the hook, saving me from a precarious situation? Miai took the seat I had just vacated, greeted everyone, and I followed suit, sitting beside her. Yan Yan smiled at me and said, Zhao Yang, you have great taste. Your girlfriend is amazing and beautiful. That's for sure. We're a perfect match. Let me formally introduce my girlfriend. Miai, I spoke with a tone of pride, but inside, I was filled with apprehension. Who knew what was on this unpredictable woman's mind? Hello, everyone. Miai smiled and greeted everyone. In turn, Fang Yuan, Yan Yan, Xiang Chen, and finally Jian Wei introduced themselves to Miai. Miai and Jian Wei locked eyes, both displaying a calm demeanor that left me unable to decipher their underlying thoughts. Jian Wei spoke first, we met the other day. Miai simply nodded. Strictly speaking, she wasn't the type to warm up easily to strangers, she maintained a certain aloofness in their presence. I'm Jian Wei, Zhao Yan's ex-girlfriend. We were all open-minded individuals, so Jian Wei's introduction didn't come as a surprise. Moreover, there was nothing to hide. By clarifying our relationships, future interactions would be more straightforward. Miai responded with a polite smile and a simple hello, refraining from further conversation, but her aloofness chilled the atmosphere. Yan Yan attempted to liven things up, asking Miai, how long have you known Zhao Yang? He's quite good at keeping secrets. We only found out yesterday. Nervously, I watched Miai. If she didn't expose me now, then this uncomfortable gathering could pass without incident. For a while, Miai replied vaguely, a response that revealed no loopholes. Yan Yan chuckled, saying, we'll leave Zhao Yang to you in the future. He's a wild one, you'll have to keep him in line. Miai nodded, adding, I'll have to. His character leaves much to be desired. Yan Yan was momentarily taken aback, looking at Miai and then at me, her expression puzzled. Chapter 29, Elopement. Amid Yan Yan's perplexed gaze, I remarked, stop flashing those skeptical eyes at me. Haven't you ever teased Fang Yuan? Between couples, a bit of banter fosters a healthy relationship. Everyone here knows I, Zhao Yang, have impeccable character. Turning to Miai, I complained, stop teasing me. Save it for when we're alone at home. These folks are all masters of teasing. Don't sink to their level. Zhao Yang, you truly are shameless. In order to uphold your own lofty image, you've degraded the rest of us. Xiang Chen exclaimed. I've always been good at it. This time, Miai chimed in, so I'm right to say your character is lacking, aren't I? Absolutely, echoed the others. Then, they chuckled knowingly and clinked their glasses, finally enlivening the atmosphere somewhat. I downed the remaining half bottle of beer in one gulp, feeling a slight sense of relief. However, my peripheral vision drifted towards Jian Wei. Since entering the bar, she had been even more silent than Miai, only exchanging occasional words with Xiang Chen. Although sitting close to Miai, I dared not make any physical contact with her for fear of her reaction. Right now, all I hoped for was to calmly end this gathering. I had no desire to participate in such events in the future. At this moment, only I knew the pain in my heart. I just wanted to stand silently behind Jian Wei and Xiang Chen, silently wishing them happiness, rather than enduring this. Feigning laughter and camaraderie with the others, despite my inner anguish, filled me with bitterness, yet I couldn't escape it. People, when wearing a mask ill-fitted to their true selves, suffer not only the pain on their faces, but also in their hearts. Finally, Robin finished his performance. Holding the microphone, he looked towards me and said, Zhao Yan, come up and sing a couple of songs to liven up the atmosphere for your friends. As Robin's voice fell, Jian Wei was the first to applaud, followed by Fang Yuan, Xiang Chen, and the others, who clapped and whistled, igniting the atmosphere in the bar. I scanned the crowd, nodded at Robin, and then walked towards the stage. Robin handed me his guitar and picked up a bass guitar from the band members. I took a deep breath, requesting Zhang Jun's elopement. A song of elopement for you. All, I said, strumming the guitar strings. As I closed my eyes, fragmented scenes flashed in my mind. Giving youth to the splendid city behind us, for this dream, we pay the price. Leaving love to the girl who was truest to me, you accompanied me in singing, in crying, in mutual wounds. Only now do I suddenly understand, what I yearn for is true love and freedom. I want to elope with you, to the farthest town, to become the happiest person. Elopement, elopement, elopement. In the midst of the tearing sound of heavy metal music, I improvised, singing 3 renditions of elopement. My emotions were unleashed at this moment. Before Jianwei went abroad, we were driven to a dead end, fleeing from Shanghai to Suzhou, and then planning to elope to Tibet from Suzhou. At that time, we naively believed that with the courage in this song, we could elope to the ends of the earth, believing that with just a guitar and each other, running wild together would make us the happiest. We also believed that eloping could steal a lifetime for us from the real world. The heavy metal music tore through desires, drowning out all the noise of the mundane world. I had never felt so out of control, wishing to tear apart the world, tear apart the illusions. As the music faded, applause thundered through the room. I still had my head raised, and after a while, I returned the guitar to Robin beside me, then walked towards the restroom without looking back. In the mirror of the restroom, my face was covered in water stains, but I rejoiced that I had finally deceived everyone and concealed the pain, the oppression, and the tears of pretense. Once, she was my faith in this city of desires. Now, faith collapsed mercilessly. So, all the wounds, the pain, the desires, were suppressed in the depths of my heart. Finally, unable to bear the burden, they mutated in the time of a song, tormenting my nerves. Outside the bar's entrance, amidst farewells, the 3 of us men were all a bit intoxicated. Fang Yuan draped his arm around Yin Yan's shoulder as they walked towards their car, while Jianwei assisted the unsteady Yixing. Only Miai and I maintained a discreet distance. Jianwei helped Yixing into the car, expecting her departure, but she turned back towards Miai and me. Standing before Miai and me, she addressed Miai without glancing at me. Go back and make him a cup of honey-infused milk. His stomach isn't feeling well. Miai nodded, and only then did Jianwei glance at me, who was somewhat unsteady on his feet, before nodding towards Miai and wordlessly turning towards the waiting car. I stared at her retreating figure, unable to shake myself from the reverie. She's already gone, Miai remarked beside me. Oh, I numbly responded. Where do you live? I'll take you back, Miai offered. No need, I'll take a taxi myself. Miai smiled and said, I promised your ex-girlfriend to make you a cup of honey milk. I don't like breaking promises. Let's go then. Miai drove, and I sat in the passenger seat, watching as the car weaved through the city's lights amidst towering buildings. I felt a bit dizzy. I knew the alcohol was taking effect. After a long silence, Miai finally asked me, that song you just sang, was it for your ex-girlfriend? Her name is Jianwei. Why, don't you like others referring to her as your ex-girlfriend? I clumsily replied, when 2 people who have ended their relationship are cleanly referred to by name, isn't that better? Miai smiled, perhaps your mind isn't as clear as your words suggest. I didn't respond, staring at Miai for a long time before suddenly saying, faster, please, I feel like vomiting. Then vomit outside. Isn't it uncomfortable to hold it in? There's a river over there. Though dizzy, I wasn't yet at the point of vomiting. Saying I wanted to vomit was merely to avoid discussing Jianwei. But the sudden break almost made me spew out the various alcohols accumulated in my stomach. It seemed this woman always saw through my lies and then punished me. I opened the car door and stumbled towards the riverside, hysterically retching. Feeling drained, I lay flat on the ground, gazing at the twinkling stars, feeling another wave of dizziness. Miai came to my side, handing me a tissue with a reproachful tone, letting you drink so much again. You just slammed on the brakes like that. I wouldn't have vomited otherwise, I clumsily retorted. Is that so? Then were you just playing me again earlier? Only then did I realize I'd been caught again, so I played dead, lying motionless on the ground. Keep pretending, I'm leaving, Miai said, sounding exasperated. I remembered the night Miai left me stranded in the wilderness and grabbed her hand, saying, don't go. I held onto Miai's hand tightly, afraid of being left alone in this deserted area where few people or cars passed by. Miai became flustered, struggling to break free while urging me to let go. But I clung to her legs as if I had found solace, consolation, and the lost past. Jia Yang, let go quickly. You've drunk too much, don't act crazy. Miai's voice grew tense, our physical contact too intimate for both of us. Let me hold you for a while, don't go. My voice choked. I'm not Jianwei. Jia Yang, get a grip. Miai pressed down on my shoulders, struggling fiercely, eventually pushing me to the ground before darting towards her car. Lying on the ground again, my world darkened. The cold autumn wind gradually woke me up. After lying for a while, I got up and walked towards Miai's car. She was still apprehensive, firmly refusing to let me sit in the front seat, relegating me to the back. The car started again, carrying me forward amidst the glow of lights, now sober from my earlier stupor. Chapter 30, a sudden opportunity. A moment later, Miai dropped me off at Robin's place, where I would settle down in this 10-square-meter attic today. Still feeling dizzy, I went straight to bed and soon drifted off. With half-open eyes, I saw Miai bustling about. She found an electric kettle, boiled water, then went downstairs. Moments later, she returned with powdered milk and honey, brewing me a cup of honey milk. Don't sleep yet, drink the milk, she urged. I didn't want to move at all, mumbling, just leave it there, I'll drink it later. It'll be cold by then. I struggled to sit up from the bed, and Miai handed me the milk, sitting across from me on a chair, watching. The milk was freshly brewed and scalding hot. I drank it slowly. Miai urged me again, drink up quickly, I'll tidy up and leave. There's nothing much to tidy up. If you're in a hurry, just go. After washing the cup, I'll pour you another cup of hot water in case you get thirsty. Miai said, why are you being so nice to me? I said, taking a big sip of milk, which was too hot for me to swallow. Miai asked with surprise, is it considered being nice just to make you a cup of milk? Yes. Miai just did the simplest thing by making me a cup of milk, yet why did I feel she was being exceptionally kind? After a while, I realized I had been lonely for too long, without a woman by my side. Every time I drank too much, I would vomit alone. There was never a woman to brew a cup of milk for me. Finally finishing the milk, Miai washed the cup and poured me another cup of plain water. This time, she didn't urge me to drink, placing it on the bedside table and saying, this water is here, drink it if you get thirsty. Oh. Miai picked up her handbag, ready to leave, but then asked me as if remembering something, do you remember what you need to do tomorrow? Get up on time and go to work, I replied without much thought. Miai frowned, that's not it. Then what is it? You think about it yourself. I'll leave first, Miai said, walking out of the room, closing the door and disappearing from my sight in an instant, leaving me puzzled. Lighting a cigarette, I sat on the bed, thinking for a long time but couldn't remember what else I needed to do tomorrow besides going to work. So, I extinguished the cigarette, pulled the blanket over me, and fell asleep again. Since Miai mentioned it was for tomorrow, I could think about it tomorrow. The next day, when I woke up, Robin was still asleep. The nature of his work meant he had to reverse his day and night. He seemed to have returned only in the early morning yesterday. After a simple wash-up, I found a bowl of instant noodles in the corner, made it as breakfast, and hurried downstairs to wait for the bus to the company. Robin's place was quite remote, and the bus swayed on the road all the way, so I spent this hour on the road thinking about what Miai had reminded me of yesterday when she left. Finally feeling relatively sober in the morning, I remembered the play Miai had cooperated with me in last night. She wouldn't help me for no reason, there must be some exchange condition between us. Following this train of thought, I suddenly realized that I needed to buy insect repellent powder and sprinkle it in the bathroom for her. Afraid of forgetting, I set a reminder on my phone, feeling more secure. After arriving at the company, before I could even make myself a cup of tea, I was summoned by Chen Jingming, the manager of our planning department. I entered Chen Jingming's office. He seemed to be in a good mood and gestured for me to sit down. Manager, you summoned me early in the morning. Did I mess up something again? I asked subconsciously. Whenever Chen Jingming called me in these 2 years, it was almost always to criticize me. Chen Jingming smiled and said, don't be nervous. This time, I have an important task for you. What task? This time, Gucci is setting up a counter in our department store, marking our Baoli department store's official entry into the ranks of top-tier department stores. The company wants to seize this opportunity to launch a comprehensive marketing campaign, aiming for a grand presence to attract more international top-tier brands to cooperate with our department store, Chen Jingming explained. Manager, are you implying that I will be responsible for planning this event? I asked in astonishment. Chen Jingming nodded, speaking solemnly, yes, this is a rare opportunity for you. Traditional retail is facing fierce competition nowadays, coupled with the strong impact of online shopping in recent years. The survival environment is harsh. Taking the high-end route and brand management are the fundamentals of our Baoli department store's survival in this industry. We must attract as many international top-tier brands as possible to operate here, strengthening the brand advantage of our Baoli department store. So, this event embodies the core values of our company, and the decision-making level above attaches great importance to it. I hope you can take on this heavy responsibility. Manager, you know me well. Such a significant event should be entrusted to Fang Yuan, I suggested. Zhao Yang, opportunities like this don't come often. It's almost certain that Fang Yuan will become the deputy manager of the planning department. Because of the contributions he has made to the company and the planning department, there is no gossip about him. But you, Zhao Yang, if I promote you to be the head of the planning copywriting team, there might be some gossip. Do you understand what I mean? Chen Jingming's tone was clear. Of course, I understood Chen Jingming's meaning. He wanted to use this event as a legitimate reason to appoint me as the head of the planning copywriting team, which was indeed a rare opportunity for me in years. After a moment of silence, I finally asked, when will the preparations for this event begin? We'll start preparing as soon as Gucci signs the contract with our department store. By the way, Gucci is preparing to shoot promotional posters for the opening on the 15th of this month. You need to confirm with the model whether she has availability. This matter must not go wrong, do you understand? Chen Jingming's expression became even more serious as he spoke. I understand. I'll call her immediately to confirm, I assured him. Chen Jingming nodded, saying, seize this opportunity well. It's not something everyone can encounter. Thank you for this opportunity, manager, I said sincerely. After leaving Chen Jingming's office, I immediately called Luo Yao, informing her of the shooting date for the promotional posters. She confirmed that there was no problem on her end, and finally, the lingering anxiety in my heart was relieved. I knew I had to do something for my life, so I must seize this opportunity. This was the first time in over 2 years of stagnation that I felt eager to advance, anticipating a significant change in life. Busy throughout the day, I realized it was already past 7 o'clock when I came to my senses. Various lights on the street once again illuminated the night of the city, dazzlingly bright. Sitting on the swaying bus, my mind was filled with thoughts of the upcoming event marketing. Chen Jingming was right, this opportunity was rare for me. I couldn't afford to be careless. After a long while, the bus was still swaying on the road. I reached into my pocket to check the time, only to find that my phone had shut down automatically due to lack of battery. I glanced at the electronic clock on the bus, it was already 8:30 in the evening. 8:30. Suddenly, I remembered that I had to buy insect repellent powder for Mei after work today, to solve those cockroaches that she hated. I remembered this morning, fearing that I might forget, I had set a reminder on my phone. But my phone happened to run out of battery, which was enough to ruin my luck and make Mei completely disgusted with me. Chapter 31, Charlatans of the World. The bus had barely come to a halt when I eagerly disembarked, scanning the area for a taxi. Alas, fate seemed to conspire against me as all that passed were already occupied. Increasingly, I am convinced, the encounter between myself and Mikai was not a splendid arrangement but an inevitable torment from which I cannot escape. Finally, a taxi arrived, and without delay, it hurried towards the agricultural market. I recalled that some street vendors there might sell insect powder, for the insecticides in supermarkets generally fail to exterminate cockroaches. Thus, I could only hope that these vendors had not yet closed shop. Arriving at the agricultural market, darkness enveloped everything. Not a soul was in sight, not even the shops inside were open. I felt a sense of despondency, despite my earnest efforts, for this night was destined to be fruitless in acquiring insect powder. With no other recourse, I reluctantly turned to the supermarket and purchased a bottle of insecticide, attempting to pass it off as the desired remedy. Arriving at the decrepit house, it was already 10 o'clock at night. The back-and-forth journey of over an hour had left me thoroughly exhausted, hoping fervently that Mikai wouldn't discover that I brought not insect powder, but merely insecticide as we had agreed upon. I knocked on the door, and after a short while, Mikai, clad in pajamas, opened it for me, seemingly munching on something. Curiously, I inquired, "What are you eating?" "Cherries," she replied. "What are cherries?" I queried further. Mikai, apparently satisfied with my compliance to our arrangement, patiently explained, "Cherries are cherries. You should wash your hands first, there are plenty over there." Are you inviting me to partake? I asked. Mikai nodded, and I promptly made my way to the bathroom, feeling a tinge of excitement. Mikai's demeanor towards me had improved significantly, so being a reliable person seemed to have its benefits. As I emerged from the bathroom, Mikai had already placed a box of cherries on the sofa in the living room, engrossed in a book while leisurely enjoying her snack, exhibiting grace and tranquility. I seated myself beside Mikai, examining the box. It was exquisitely crafted, and only then did I realize that these were authentic cherries imported from Chile, not the counterfeit ones parading as imports in supermarkets, easily worth 1,000 or more. I picked up 2 cherries and popped them into my mouth, remarking to Mikai, "We are supposedly of the same ilk, with 1 nose and 2 eyes, yet why do you lead such a luxurious life?" "What?" Mikai looked at me puzzled. "I mean, your life seems extravagant. Since my birth, I've never tasted such expensive fruit," I remarked, grabbing 2 more cherries. "They were a gift from a friend," Mikai replied, her attention returning to her book. "In that case, why haven't any of my friends gifted me such pricey fruit? Ultimately, your class is corrupt, extravagant." "The parasites of socialism," I declared, tossing several more cherries into my mouth. Mikai, seemingly in good spirits and unwilling to engage in confrontation, simply said, "If you like them, you can take some home." "Of course, I must," I stated, rising from the sofa and retrieving a convenient bag to pack the cherries. At this moment, Mikai finally set aside her book and asked me, "Have you bought the insect powder?" "If I hadn't, would I have had the audacity to come?" I retorted. Mikai nodded in agreement, remarking, "If you hadn't bought it and still dared to come, that would be harassment." Bought it. "What nonsense about harassment, tarnishing my reputation," I impatiently responded, retrieving the purchased insecticide from my briefcase, ready to deceive. Mikai scrutinized the insecticide and frowned, saying, "Didn't you say insect powder? This doesn't seem quite right." Panic surged within me, but I quickly replied, "Of course, it's not the same. This is the latest insecticide developed, highly effective against cockroaches." Mikai, wearing a skeptical expression, remarked, "I've read in books that cockroaches have strong resistance, and conventional insecticides are ineffective." "Don't be so dogmatic. Do you think this is an ordinary insecticide? Without boasting, this can eradicate the cockroaches in this house, inhumane to say the least," I blurted out. Mikai still wore an incredulous expression and said, "Why do I feel like you're a charlatan from the Jianghu?" Feeling a twinge of guilt, I retorted in anger, "I'm doing this for your own good. Insect powder is highly toxic. What if you accidentally poisoned a mouse? Isn't that disgusting?" Mikai was taken aback by my words and hastily instructed, "Then don't just stand there. Do what you came here to do." "Do you want to observe?" I asked. Mikai shook her head repeatedly, and I nonchalantly turned away, then walked triumphantly towards the bathroom. At this moment, I felt a sense of triumph, as if reclaiming a lost fortress, and in my heart, I chuckled, "Silly girl, come and expose me again if you dare, come on." Carrying the cherries Mikai had bestowed upon me, I bid her farewell. It was already 11 o'clock, and returning to Robin's place would take at least until midnight. I couldn't help but reflect on what a tumultuous night it had been. As I was about to leave, I cautioned Mikai, "Don't use the bathroom tonight after spraying the insecticide, there will be too many toxic substances." "Understood," she replied. Out of boredom, I asked, "Can you hold it in for the night? I'm worried, I usually have to use the restroom several times during the night." As expected, Mikai frowned and said, "Why do you talk so much?" "I'm concerned about you," I defended. "I won't be staying here tonight," Mikai stated plainly. Her words once again piqued my curiosity. From her remarks, I could almost be certain that she had other properties in this city. But why insist on buying this one and living here? Yet, I refrained from voicing my doubts. Mikai wouldn't reveal her secrets to me, I had asked before. Moreover, knowing the answer served no purpose other than satisfying curiosity. I had grown accustomed to doing meaningful things, so I let it be. I took another cherry from my pocket and popped it into my mouth, saying to Mikai, "Well, I'm off. If there's anything unsettled in this house or the neighborhood, give me a call." She acknowledged. I cleared my throat, and the motion sensor light in the hallway flickered on as I turned to leave. "Xiao Yang, wait." I turned back, surprised, to look at Mikai. "You don't want me to stay, do you? I can't hold it in without using the bathroom here." Take your guitar, Mikhail said, turning back to the room I used to live in and fetching the guitar from inside. I didn't want to take the guitar from Mikhail. After a prolonged silence, I said quietly, I told you to find someone who knows about guitars. This one could fetch a good price. I don't have the money to repay you now. I asked you to repay the money that day because I was angry with you. Take the guitar with you, it belongs to no one but you and Janway, at least as a memory, Mikhail said calmly. Surprised, I asked, how do you know this guitar is related to Janway? Your names are engraved on it, Mikhail replied calmly. After a long silence, I didn't look at the guitar Mikhail had placed in the corner of the room. I said softly, I don't want it anymore. Mikhail smiled and said, you can discard a guitar, but you can't let go of the memories. So why deceive yourself? I remained silent. Take it, Mikhail placed the guitar box outside the door and then closed the door with the guitar reclaimed. I returned to Robin's residence with a heavy heart. Coincidentally, at the corridor entrance, I ran into Robin and a woman dressed provocatively. The woman removed her helmet and dismounted from Robin's modified racing motorcycle, followed by Robin, who also removed his helmet. I immediately understood that this was Robin's partner he had brought back. Robin embraced the alluring woman and introduced her to me. Zhao Yang, this is my friend Lily. I smiled and said, doesn't bother you too, does it? Should I go stay at a hotel? No bother, just for tonight, a little while, Robin replied. All right then, I'll wait downstairs. Could you help me take the guitar up first? Robin took the guitar from my hand, patted my shoulder, indicating it would be taken care of soon, then embraced the woman and headed upstairs. I sat at the corridor entrance, opened the cherries I brought back from Mikhail's, and began eating Chapter 32, Payday. Sitting in the corridor for nearly 40 minutes, Robin still hadn't finished up. The autumn breeze was starting to get to me, and I contemplated going up to urge him along. Just as I was about to stand, Lily, the woman, descended from upstairs, her presence accompanied by a strong scent of perfume. Don? I adjusted my clothes and asked. Lily glanced at me with dissatisfaction. If it weren't for you, I would have spent the night here. Robin has several more bars to hit tomorrow, don't hassle him, I replied. I don't understand why two men are living together, Lily persisted in her discontent. I'm just staying here for a short while until I find a place. I'll move out once I do, I explained, feeling somewhat guilty. Lily nodded, then added, I forgot my wallet. Give me $50 for a cab. I was taken aback. Why didn't you ask Robin just now? I forgot just now and couldn't be bothered to go back up. Stop dilly-dallying and hurry up, Lily demanded, making a gesture for money. Are you a prostitute or something? I blurted out. Lily shot me a glare. Have you ever seen an out-and-proud prostitute ask for only $50? Fair point, I conceded. I took out my wallet and searched for a 50, but couldn't find one. Lily directly grabbed a 100 bill, flaunting it in front of me, as if I owed her something. After Lily left, I realized that staying at Robin's place wasn't a long-term solution. It was inconvenient, and far from the office. I needed to continue searching for a place of my own. Back inside, the scent of Lily still lingered in the air. I glanced at the bed instinctively, but it remained neatly made. Worried you wouldn't sleep well, so I didn't mess up the bed, Robin explained. Thanks, I replied. It's nothing. Sleeping or standing, it's all the same, Robin said with a smile. I placed the cherries I brought from Mikhail's on the table and said to Robin, a friend gave these, try them. Oh, imported from Chile. Which friend of yours is so extravagant? Robin remarked, picking one up and popping it into his mouth. I didn't answer immediately, realizing that calling Mikhail a friend might be presumptuous. In reality, we were barely more than acquaintances, and often, Mikhail found me quite irritating. Just a friend, I replied vaguely. It was a trivial matter, and Robin didn't pursue it further. He took out the guitar from its case, strummed the strings, and looked intoxicated. Then he asked me, didn't you pawn this awesome guitar off to settle a debt? How did it end up back in your hands? She returned it to me, I answered truthfully. Who's she? Do I need to write a book to answer you? I retorted. Robin chuckled knowingly. Fair enough. He stopped pressing me further, then strummed the guitar, playing a rendition of Cinderella that floated out of the cramped attic room with the autumn night breeze. The night was eerily quiet, resembling stagnant water. Robin and I lay on the bed, each holding a cigarette, lost in thought, enveloped in the same silence. Suddenly, a gust of wind from outside blew forcefully, dispersing the smoke that filled the room. Taking a deep drag, I exhaled heavily, filling the room with the scent of tobacco once again. Quickly finishing my cigarette and extinguishing it in the ashtray, I finally asked Robin, "What are you thinking about, buddy?" "Thinking about girls," Robin replied, also taking a deep drag on his cigarette. I teased him, "Didn't you just sleep with Lily?" Robin chuckled, extinguishing his cigarette and lighting another one from the pack. "After a while," he said, "I wonder how she's doing now." "If you miss her, just get in touch with her, like an old friend checking in," I suggested. "Do you dare to contact Janway after breaking up for over 2 years?" Robin countered. "Why bring up Janway and me?" I asked. "It's the same logic. What can contacting her change? Just accept it." Robin responded. "I feel sorry for you. Clearly still in love, yet forced by her parents, only to be remembered as a betrayer in her heart," I sympathized. "As long as she's happy, my little grievance doesn't matter," Robin concluded. I lit another cigarette and took a couple of puffs, falling into silence, choosing not to push Robin to contact the Beijing girl. "Let's sleep, it's almost dawn," Robin said, extinguishing his half-smoked cigarette in the ashtray. Glancing out the window, as if seeing through all the darkness before dawn, I couldn't help but sigh. Life is truly an unsolvable puzzle, full of truths and falsehoods. The next day passed in another busy blur. This kind of busyness was something I hadn't experienced in the first 2 years at the company, mainly because Fan Yuan's workload had temporarily fallen on my shoulders, but it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. If I were lucky enough to become the leader of the planning and copywriting team, then this was just an early adaptation process. Besides the day's busyness, I also had another gain. Today, I finally received my salary. So, as the end of the workday approached, I began planning how to spend this month's earnings. After much deliberation, I decided that the first expenditure of this money would be to treat Mikai to dinner. I remembered how a few days ago, I had tricked her into attending Fan Yuan's wedding under the pretense of having a meal. She was so angry. Without a doubt, it was a thoughtless act on my part. Therefore, tonight's dinner must be an invitation extended with the utmost sincerity, to apologize and to express gratitude for her cooperation in the drama we staged at the bar the other night, saving me from embarrassment in front of Janway. I found Mikai's number and dialed it. She answered after a short while, her tone as calm as ever. "Hello, what's up? I'd like to invite you to dinner tonight. Will you do me the honor?" I asked sincerely. "Is it another friend's wedding?" Mikai replied. I was a bit speechless. She always had a way of calmly choking me. After a moment's pause, I said, "This time it's not a friend's wedding. I just want to invite you to dinner." "Oh, let's skip it today," Mikai declined. I felt a bit disappointed, but I persisted. "Come on, I received my salary today, and you were the first person I thought of. Please don't refuse my hospitality. My car is at the garage for maintenance, and it's not convenient to take a taxi here." Next time, Mikai finally gave me a legitimate reason for not coming that's easy to fix. "I have a car. I'll pick you up." "Where are you?" I offered. "You have a car?" Mikai sounded puzzled. "Yeah, it's similar to yours. Just give me a chance, okay? Tonight, I'll take you to a special restaurant. I guarantee you'll like it," I pleaded. Mikai thought for a moment before finally agreeing. "Okay, I'm in Willow Riverside. Come over." "You live in Willow Riverside?" I exclaimed, as it was a high-end local neighborhood. Mikai must have moved there yesterday because the bathroom was sprayed with insecticide and unusable. "Why so many questions?" Mikai said before hanging up. I chuckled and didn't mind Mikai's attitude. I had already expected that she had other houses in Suzhou. Putting my phone back in my pocket, I said to Jolly, who was still busy next door, "Jolly, can I borrow your little Prince Alto tonight?" Jolly looked up at me warily and asked, "What are you up to?" "I'll fill up the gas tank for you after using it. Hurry up," I said impatiently. "You said it, but don't play me," Jolly said, taking the car keys out of the drawer and handing them to me. As the sky darkened, I drove Jolly's Alto toward Willow Riverside Community. This time, I really didn't deceive Mikai. The car I was driving now was indeed similar to hers. Hers was an Audi, mine was an Alto, both eye-catching shades of purple-red. Chapter 33, Music-Themed Restaurant in the Empty City. After driving for about half an hour, I finally arrived at Willow Riverside, where I now lived. Mikai was already waiting for me under a phoenix tree outside the community. Autumn leaves swirled in the air as they fell, and the light illuminated her figure, as beautiful as a character stepping out of a painting. Serene and tranquil, I honked the car horn, and Mikai looked towards me. Smiling at her, I said, "Get in the car. Let's go eat. If we're late, we might not get a table." Mikai walked towards me and opened the car door, sitting in the passenger seat without caring about what kind of car I was driving. However, I felt a bit nervous and said, "How about my car? It's not bad, right? Small engine, low carbon emissions." "It's not bad, just a bit sleazy like you," Mikai said with a half smile. "Am I sleazy?" I asked, then awkwardly checked myself in the mirror. "Sleazy doesn't necessarily refer to appearance. I mean your character," Mikai replied. I returned the mirror to its original position, not wanting to argue with Mikai. After all, she already had the impression that my character was bad. Even if I packaged myself as a hero saving the nation, she would still think I was sleazy. Mikai was a bit surprised by my lack of retort, but I just smiled at her and started the car. I thought to myself, Mikai probably doesn't understand what it means to be a profound man. Usually, profound men are silent, so according to this standard, I am obviously a very profound man. The Alto traversed through the streets and alleys, finally stopping at an old street that was about to be demolished. Mikai and I got out of the car. The restaurant I wanted to take her to was through a narrow alley where the car couldn't pass, so we had to walk. This narrow alley was dimly lit, with only a few street lamps, making Mikai nervously ask me as she followed closely behind, "Where are you taking me?" "To a paradise, but we have to pass through this dark stretch first," I replied. After walking through this dark alley, the space on the other side suddenly expanded under a bright street lamp. The empty city-themed music restaurant appeared in front of Mikai. I lit a cigarette and said to Mikai beside me, "This is the restaurant. It's owned by a friend of mine who plays music. The music atmosphere inside is great, but they mainly serve Sichuan cuisine." "That's quite eclectic," Mikai remarked, looking at the sign. "Typically, music-themed restaurants serve Western cuisine." "Yeah, the boss is from Chongqing. Can you handle spicy food?" I asked. "I can," Mikai replied. As we walked into the restaurant, the proprietress, CC, was sitting on a height-adjustable bar stool, singing and holding a glass of beer in one hand and an unfinished cigarette in the other. CC noticed my arrival immediately and snapped her fingers during a musical interlude. "Long time no see, Zhao Yang," she greeted. I nodded and gave CC a thumbs up to indicate that her singing was excellent. CC smiled and gestured for us to chat later before continuing to sing along with the music. Performing Zhang Xian's appearance, Mikai and I found a table and sat down. Mikai seemed to enjoy CC's singing a lot and didn't speak to me, listening quietly. I ordered the food and immersed myself in CC's singing. In CC's somewhat hoarse but extremely infectious voice, I recalled some memories. 3 years ago, Jianwei and I fled from Shanghai to Suzhou due to her parents' crazy opposition. We were both penniless and struggling to survive. I used to perform here at CC's music-themed restaurant, earning some income to support our lives. At that time, Jianwei would wait in the restaurant every day to listen to me sing, and she would also help serve dishes and water to customers to earn some tips. Whenever the restaurant closed, I would habitually smoke a cigarette, and she would help me carry the guitar. We would hold hands and walk through the dimly lit alley, and I would buy her a roasted sweet potato at the corner stall at winter. Sometimes the wind was very cold, and sometimes the rain and snow were heavy, but the feeling of depending on each other made me feel warm to this day. "Zhao Yang, why is this restaurant called Empty City?" Mikai's sudden question broke the images in my mind, and I was stunned for a moment before answering. When everyone is born, there's an empty city in their hearts. As time goes by, as they grow up, the restlessness, indifference, and worldly fame and fortune fill this empty city, making it bloated and unbearable. It's called Empty City to commemorate that pure empty city. Is that your understanding? Mikai asked. This is what CC told me, I said, glancing at CC who was singing. Mikai nodded, took a sip of cold tea, and continued to listen to CC singing. CC finally finished singing a song and walked towards us with the microphone. CC was a very unconventional beauty. Her features weren't particularly attractive individually, but together, they were captivating and unforgettable, so as she walked over, she attracted the attention of many diners. CC placed a large glass of draft beer in front of me with a smile and said, "This one's on the house." Then, she signaled the waiter to bring a large glass of cola for Mikai. I'm driving today, so I won't drink, Mikai said. Go ahead, I'll drive for you later, I replied. CC then looked at Mikai and asked, Is this girl your new girlfriend? I glanced at Mikai, who remained calm, and plucked up the courage to say, Yes, she's my girlfriend. CC shrugged. I knew she felt sorry for me and Janwei, but she still smiled and greeted Mikai, complimenting her as stunningly beautiful. The lights in the restaurant dimmed slightly, but the old-fashioned candlesticks on the tables lit up, casting a starry glow throughout the restaurant, filling the air with the scent of faint-scented candles. After a moment of silence, CC asked me, By the way, what has Robin been busy with lately? He hasn't been here for a long time. What else could he be busy with? He's just going to bars all day, I replied. If you have time, invite him to come by. I really miss him, CC said with a hint of helplessness and sadness in her tone. She liked Robin, but Robin always thought of that Beijing girl. Sure, let's set a time and have a gathering together. It'll be near your place, I suggested. You have to promise me, CC said, looking at me seriously. I smiled and made a promise, I promise. CC nodded in relief. After CC left, Mikai and I finally had some alone time. I raised my draft beer and gestured to Mikai, who also picked up her cola, and we clinked glasses, each taking a sip. Just then, two people walked into the restaurant from outside, bringing in a gust of cold wind. I recognized them instantly. It was Janwei and Xiangchen. Various emotions surged within me, leaving me at a loss. It seemed that this was not a night for Mikai and me to quietly enjoy dinner. I was tired of these encounters, scared of them, and hated the coincidences that made us awkwardly meet again. Chapter 34, A Place of Purity. My countenance began to shift unnaturally, and sitting across from me, Mikai noticed my discomfiture. She glanced at me and then turned her gaze back, and thus our eyes met with Jianwei's. Mikai's demeanor was somewhat aloof, while Jianwei was inherently proud. Despite this straightforward encounter, neither of them exchanged greetings. Instead, they waved towards Chen Xiang and said, Jia Yang, treating your girlfriend to a meal? Yes, since you're here, let's share a table together. Despite my reluctance to meet, I courteously extended the invitation. Such formalities made me feel quite uneasy, yet I had to abide by them. Jianwei took Chen Xiang's arm and shook her head, saying, No need to share. We'll sit at the other table to avoid crowding. Chen Xiang complied with her command, smiled at me, then linked arms with Jianwei and headed towards another table. Watching their receding figures, I believed that after this unexpected encounter, Jianwei and Chen Xiang must surely believe that Mikai and I were indeed in a romantic relationship, especially since today Mikai and I were having a private dinner date. This was probably Jianwei's first visit to Sky during her return to the country. Therefore, CC was very surprised to see Jianwei and also offered Jianwei and Chen Xiang draft beer and cola, but didn't mention the past, because at this moment, Jianwei already saw us each with new companions. Bringing up the past would be tactless and ruin the atmosphere. During the meal, Chen Xiang and I exchanged a few words across several tables. I asked Chen Xiang why he and Jianwei were still in Suzhou. Chen Xiang replied that Suzhou was where we attended university, but we seldom came here these years. Seizing the opportunity while both he and Jianwei had time, they planned to stay here a few more days, but in a few days, Jianwei would accompany him to Nanjing. Chen Xiang's response pricked my fragile nerves. I was well aware that Jianwei was going to Nanjing to meet Chen Xiang's family. Perhaps before long, I would indeed receive their wedding invitation, tearing me apart once again. Throughout the meal, I remained restless, never glancing towards Jianwei's direction and refraining from drinking much. I repeatedly admonished myself, our past, already diluted by the passage of time, no amount of reluctance or self-torture would change anything anymore. I deeply understood, when Jianwei put on the crystal diamond necklace given by Chen Xiang, I had already begun living in a separate world, erecting the sturdiest of walls around me, shutting myself off, not looking, not thinking, not hurting. At some point, Chen Xiang and Jianwei had finished their dinner before us. They simply bid farewell and left in haste. I watched them enter the narrow alleyway, yet I could no longer see the site of the corner where we used to buy roasted sweet potatoes on winter nights. The night was a bit chilly. Mikai waved her hand in front of my eyes, rousing me from my reverie. It was then I realized that this was originally a dinner meant only for Mikai and me. Apologetically, I raised my glass to Mikai, drank the remaining draft beer in one gulp, but remained sober. The dinner continued, not because Mikai and I dawdled, but because Jianwei and Chen Xiang departed too hastily. I ordered another draft beer, not to intoxicate myself. This kind of beer couldn't achieve that, but to clear my mind with its cold liquid. Half an hour later, Mikai and I finished the dinner, bid farewell to Cece, and left. Zhao Yang, haven't you paid yet? Mikai said, grabbing my arm. We're such good friends, who needs to pay? I replied, continuing to walk forward, but it was just a jest with Mikai. In reality, during the entire meal, we were mostly silent, not exchanging many words. Teasing her before leaving at least made this heavy night seem a little lighter. Mikai exerted more force, her calm face now filled with anger. You're just incorrigible. If everyone were like you, how could your friend's restaurant stay in business? You've had a bit too much to drink. How peculiar, can cola intoxicate someone too? I said to Mikai with a half smile, half smirk. At this moment, her agitated demeanor was vastly different from her usual self. Mikai realized her outburst and ceased her insistence with me retrieving her wallet. She walked towards the counter. In this moment, I further grasped how repulsed Mikai was by my reprehensible behavior, to the extent that she disregarded her own composure and argued with me in public. I hastened to catch up, seizing Mikai's arm and said to her, we agreed that I would treat you, how could I let you pay? I don't want to associate with scum like you. Don't speak to me. Heh, I was just kidding with you. The place to pay isn't at the counter, it's in that corner over there. I turned Mikai's body to let her see the box in the corner. Mikai looked at me with some confusion. She had been sitting with her back to the box during the meal and didn't understand the situation. I smiled and explained, didn't you notice there were no prices on the menu we ordered from? Dining here relies entirely on one's conscience. When leaving, you just toss the money into that box. You can toss in however much you want? Mikai asked, astonished. Yes, no one here will supervise you. But I pulled Mikai to the corner where the box was placed, took out 300 yuan from my wallet, and placed it inside the box. Then I said to Mikai, people who come here to consume once harbored a pure inner sanctum. No one would defile this sanctum with worldly materials. Hence, this restaurant has been operating for many years without loss. If there's still a clean place in this world, it must be here. On the way back, Mikai drove her agile alto through the real city, yet she still seemed interested in the music-themed restaurant in the empty city. She asked me, Zhao Yang, have all the customers who have come to this restaurant over the years obeyed this rule? Of course not. When this restaurant first opened, there were many who came to freeload or skip out on paying. Mikai wasn't surprised by my answer, as the world was never short of those who love to take advantage without effort. She asked further, then why has it become such that everyone follows this rule now? I recollected and replied, at that time, we all advised CC to abandon this idealistic way of running the business because it was too impractical. But CC insisted on it. Eventually, the business couldn't make ends meet and was difficult to sustain. One day, a closure notice was posted on the restaurant's bulletin board. And then? On the last night before closing, many people still came with their families for the free dinner. We all felt disheartened, blaming CC for being too naive. This idealistic way of doing business only revealed the ugliness of human nature in the end. Mikai nodded thoughtfully. I lit a cigarette, continued speaking. After closing that night, we were really disheartened. A few friends closed the door and drank a lot of alcohol because after that night, there would be no more restaurant in the empty city. But when we settled the day's income with CC by opening the box, we were surprised to find 100,000 yuan inside. We were astonished, but no one knew which customer had put it in. So, did the restaurant continue to operate because of this 100,000 yuan? I nodded, yes, this 100,000 yuan gave CC the motivation to continue operating. More accurately, it was a kind of spiritual motivation. For that unknown customer, and to keep the empty city open, we changed the box to a transparent one. Everyone could see clearly how much money each person put in. For those scoundrels who only tossed in a few coins, my friends and I would corner them in the alley and give them a beating. Over time, those who loved to take advantage stopped coming. But CC never knew about this. If she did, she wouldn't have approved of what we did. After a long time, CC changed the transparent box back to an opaque one, but the restaurant has basically stopped losing money. Of course, there may still be some who try to take advantage. After hearing my story, Mikai, who was usually indifferent, surprisingly said with a shared sense of anger, well done, those despicable people deserve it. But by resorting to vigilantism like this, wouldn't those beaten report to the police? Of course, they would report, but one of the guys who beat them with us is a policeman in this area, so they turned a blind eye to it. Besides, we weren't extorting money, and we exercised restraint in our actions. It was mainly to warn them. As long as those scumbags don't come, the restaurant can operate normally. Mikai looked at me and suddenly laughed. I looked at her in surprise, not understanding. Listening to you curse others as scumbags is inexplicably funny. Mikai laughed and explained. Who said scumbags can't curse others as scumbags? I didn't say you're a scumbag this time. You meant it though. Do you think I'm stupid? Can't you tell? Mikai burst into laughter. In the many days we've spent together, this was the first time I saw her laugh so openly. In that moment, her sunny disposition became even more captivating, and the little alto traversed through the city's light and shadows, shedding some of its real-world heaviness, accompanied instead by a string of beautiful laughter. Chapter 35, You Beast. Micah drove me back to Robin's residence, and this evening I did not indulge too much, so the farewell became simpler. Micah unbuckled her seatbelt and said to me, "Thank you for tonight's dinner. I really liked that restaurant. Feel free to frequent it, but don't attempt to dine and dash. I'll gather a band of righteous individuals and corner you in an alley for a good thrashing," I joked with Micah. "If I were to do that, I would willingly accept your judgment," she replied. "You are quite enlightened." Micah said no more, opened the car door, and got out, scanning for a passing taxi. I followed suit, stepping out of the car and standing beside Micah as we waited. After a while, I nudged her playfully and said, "Let's discuss something." "What is it?" she inquired. "Let me return to being your landlord, and you be my female tenant, shall we?" "That's an impractical request. You just moved out recently." "But my longing for that house has only grown stronger by the day." Micah decisively said, "Refrain from your unwarranted thoughts. I don't fancy having a man in my house." "But didn't you previously shelter me?" "That's because you pitifully begged me." "Then let me pitifully beg you again." Micah didn't show the same irritation as before with my persistence, patiently telling me, "Cohabiting with a man and a woman is truly inconvenient. There are plenty of options in this vast city, so why trouble me? Then will you not live with your boyfriend in the future? It's inevitable for a man and a woman to live together, regardless of who they are." Micah smiled faintly. "You're right, so I'll only live with my boyfriend, not you." Finally, an empty taxi approached. Micah hailed it, then swiftly got in, soon disappearing from my sight. Speaking to the night, I muttered to myself, "You're quite right, but why do I feel like you're forcing me to be your boyfriend, then legitimately live together? I remember mentioning it to Old Board last time. You're not my type, so kindly put away your unwarranted desires." Suddenly, I chuckled at my audacity, daring even to deceive myself. Entering Robin's house, it was still empty, not even a television set. This night was destined to be dull and boring. I dragged out a few boxes from under the bed, found a can of beer, which was quite nice. Having a beer and strumming on the guitar while singing a few songs was a decent pastime. The wind on the balcony still blew wildly. I sat on the railing with my guitar, unmoved. I wasn't afraid of the wild wind, but I feared not seeing that city of the sky. So I plucked the guitar strings, singing hoarsely, as if summoning, as if pleading, calling for that distant city to return to my heart, to be settled, to no longer wander. Robin returned at some point, suddenly handing me a cigarette from behind, then leaping onto the railing himself, lighting a cigarette for himself. I set the guitar aside, lit the cigarette, and took a drag, saying to Robin, "I had dinner at Cece's restaurant today." "Is that so?" Robin replied mechanically. "Cece said she misses you." Robin looked at me, silent for a moment before saying, "I chatted with Lyo on WeChat today as well." "Is that so?" I responded mechanically. "Lyo said she misses you." I chuckled and said, "I relayed Cece's message to you. In all honesty, you're clearly messing around." Robin didn't bother with further banter, pulling out his phone from his pocket and showing me his chat history with Lyo. Indeed, black and white, solid evidence. Suddenly, I felt speechless. Taking a sip of beer from beside me, I spoke after a moment. "You haven't seen Cece for a long time, have you? We should go to her restaurant together sometime. Bring Lyo along, let's go together." "Why do you always involve Lyo for no reason?" "My dear Xiaoyang, do unto others as you would have them do unto you." He smiled, then added, "You should understand better than anyone else that a man's heart isn't that vast. It can only hold the first woman, at least in this regard. We're of the same kind." I shook my head and said, Robin, you and CC are actually quite suitable for each other. You share the same ideals, the same hobbies, the same character. Whereas Liao and I clearly belong to different worlds. She doesn't genuinely like me that much, it's more of a dependence for a while. So, please don't force such comparisons. Let's not dwell on these matters. I'm a bit tired today, I'll go to bed first, Robin said, patting my shoulder before climbing down from the railing. I called out to him, make some time soon to visit CC's place, alright? We'll see. After giving me a vague answer, Robin left. I knew he couldn't bear to defile CC with a heart he didn't love. After all, CC wasn't like those women he could bring home for a night. In this aspect, Robin had his principles. Though I understood Robin, there was still some regret in my heart. The next day, I woke up slightly later than usual, as I didn't need to take the bus today. Zhao car was still with me. Arriving at the office, I just managed to clock in at the front desk before 9, and soon after, Zhao rushed out from another elevator, swiftly making his way to the time clock. But just as he was about to swipe his card, the time stubbornly skipped past 9. With a mournful face, Zhao complained to me, Xiaoyang, it's all your fault. I thought I had a car, so I slept until 8, but then. Sigh. I've lost my perfect attendance award for this month. I tossed him the car keys I had in hand, saying nonchalantly, it's just a perfect attendance award, not a big deal. I didn't get it last month either. Have you ever received it since you started working? I was irritated by Zhao Li's question, my face darkening. Quickly changing the subject, Zhao Li asked, did you fill up my car with gas? Don't worry, I filled it up. Zhao Li finally found some peace of mind and nodded. I added, by the way, I found a Sinopec gas card in your car and handed it over to the attendant when refueling. Zhao Li's expression changed drastically, still clinging to a glimmer of hope. He said, you don't know the password. It's just Pan Xiaoyun's, Zhao Li's girlfriend, birthday. I know it. Xiaoyang, you beast. Was it you who stole my equipment in the game last time? In the office, Zhao Li still glared at me with unmitigated hatred, but I ignored him. Next time I needed it, I knew his little alto would obediently be at my service. Preparing to go to the break room for a cup of coffee to freshen up, I received a summon from manager Chen Jingming, asking me to immediately come to his office. Setting down my cup, I went straight to Chen Jingming's office. Have a seat, Chen Jingming said, still looking at some documents. I won't sit. If you have something to say, manager, I'm busy, I replied. Chen Jingming looked up, smiled, then set down the papers, saying to me, this time, there's something I need you to coordinate. Is it about Gucci again? Chen Jingming nodded, the date for shooting the promotional poster has changed. It's now set for the 10th of this month. Inform the model. But wasn't it agreed upon for the 15th? They're not jobless vagabonds, they have their schedules. Do you know how difficult it is to coordinate with the production team? Chen Jingming also looked helpless. Gucci made a last-minute adjustment. The photographer has other work on the 15th, so it had to be moved up to the 10th. Their attitude is really something. They decide which model to use, and we have to find one for them. They adjust the timing, and we have to comply. My anger flared up even more. Enough, Xiaoyang. You're on the company's payroll. This is a task from above, and you must complete it, Chen Jingming finally said with some irritation. I sneered, am I on the company's payroll to the extent that if the company says the moon in the sky looks good, I have to build a spaceship and bring it down to offer it to the company? Chapter 36, Burning with Anger. Chen Jingming found himself in an awkward position after my remarks. He had another favor to ask of me and softened his tone, saying, I'm also furious about Gucci's last-minute change in the shooting date. But what can we do? We can't just confront them head-on. They have plenty of options for setting up their counters, but it's much harder for us to secure a top-tier international brand like the 8th one. Sigh. People have to go with the flow. Xiaoyang, if you want to advance further in your career, you must learn the words patience and compromise by heart and hold them dear. After Chen Jingming's words, I felt embarrassed to continue my anger. He was actually a decent boss. In the 2+ years at the company, he had taken care of me a lot, but I wasn't very ambitious myself. I didn't want to make things difficult for Chen Jingming. He had his own struggles, and I understood the stakes of this matter. After a long silence, I said to him, I'll contact her, but the day after tomorrow is the 10th. The time is tight, and I can't promise anything. Rubbing his temples wearily, Chen Jingming said, do your best to communicate. Tell her, if she can participate in the shoot on the 10th, I'm personally willing to pay triple the usual compensation as compensation for her. Once again, I fell into silence, deeply feeling Chen Jingming's plight. The higher-ups at the company must have put a lot of pressure on him regarding this matter. He and I were different. After all, he had reached this position, while I was just at the grassroots level. If things got uncomfortable, I could always switch to another company. Perhaps his helplessness and compromise were just manifestations of the cruelty of the workplace. Leaving Chen Jingming's office, I dialed Liao's number amidst complex emotions. Liao seemed not to have woken up yet. After a long time of dialing, she sleepily answered the phone. "Hello, Xiaoyang, why are you calling me at this hour? Are you still sleeping?" "Yeah, I had 2 night scenes yesterday, and we shot almost overnight. So tired." Liao yawned and asked, "Do you have something to tell me?" I found it difficult to speak and remained silent for a while before saying, "There's been a change in Gucci's shooting schedule. It's been moved up to the 10th, which is the day after tomorrow. Can you adjust your schedule again?" Liao fell silent on the other end of the phone, and that silence was enough to show how difficult this was for her. Because she had already requested leave for the 15th, the production team must have made adjustments to her scenes. This kind of adjustment would involve many other actors, and making changes now would certainly raise objections from others. "I'll go talk to the director now. If it can be coordinated, I'll let you know as soon as possible," Liao said to me. "Alright, I'm really sorry about this time." Liao smiled and said, "Why talk about this? If it can be arranged, you'll have to come to Hengdian to pick me up this afternoon. Taking the train is too boring." "No problem." "Well, then wait for my message." After concluding the conversation with Liao, I promptly retired to the restroom to indulge in a cigarette. My heart felt constricted. I am acutely aware of Liao's status as a newcomer. Repeatedly making demands to the production crew could have dire consequences. Yet, she readily acquiesced to my requests. I sincerely hope not to cause her any trouble. Around noon, while having my meal, my phone vibrated with a message from Liao. "Jiayang, the production team has approved my leave for a total of 3 days. Please come pick me up swiftly," accompanied by a smiling emoji. I took a deep breath, and my nervousness finally eased a bit. I promptly replied to Liao's message, and this afternoon, I will head to Hengdian to fetch Liao back to Suzhou. I once again visited Chen Jingming's office to report the situation. Like me, he visibly relaxed. He immediately handed me his car keys and gave me 2,000 yuan in cash. He instructed me to represent him in treating Liao to a meal in Hengdian first, and he would host her separately upon her return to Suzhou. Chen Jingming also informed me that the vice president of Gucci's China division would officially sign the contract with our department store for setting up their display on the day of shooting the promotional posters in Suzhou. This signifies the completion of the months-long Gucci investment plan by the planning and merchandising departments. Consequently, Boli department store has officially reached the standard of a top-class B-category department store. Personally, I have been granted an opportunity for a promotion to the head of the planning copywriting group. Hoping fervently for a successful outcome this time, devoid of any further mishaps. Exiting the office, I immediately drove Chen Jingming's Audi A4 towards Hengdian. Upon arrival, it was already past 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Rather than seeking accommodation, I proceeded directly to the filming location where Liao was working. We had agreed to meet outside the scenic area after she finished shooting for the afternoon. The autumn wind swept away the dusk, and the sky had completely darkened. Liao had not emerged from the set yet. Lighting a cigarette, I absent-mindedly stared at the exit of the scenic area. Liao finally appeared under the light at the exit, walking slowly. She covered her face with her right hand, and I couldn't discern her expression clearly. I stood up and approached her. She glanced at me but didn't show the usual intimacy as before. I smiled and asked, "Do you have a toothache? Why cover your face?" Liao remained silent, continuing to walk forward. Her unusual behavior left me perplexed. I caught up with her and asked with concern, "What's wrong? Let me see your face." "It's nothing," Liao quickened her pace, her voice choking. I grabbed her, forcibly removing her hand covering her cheek. I was stunned to see several bright red fingerprints on her fair face. Enraged, I exclaimed, "Who the hell hit you? I'll damn well kill them." I started walking towards the entrance of the scenic area. Liao, holding onto me from behind, pleaded, "Jiaoyang, please don't go. Let go, I won't spare them." I couldn't control my fury. I vaguely realized Liao must have been assaulted because of this incident. After shaking off Liao, she sat on the ground, clutching my legs tightly, crying, "Jiayang, please, don't cause trouble. It's no good for Met here are too many people here, let's talk back at the hotel." I struggled to contain myself, seeing the surrounding gazes gradually calming down. At this moment, escalating the situation would only add insult to injury for Liao. Unless she didn't care about anything anymore, giving up this role, which was clearly impossible for her, all I could do for Liao now was endure. Helping Liao up from the ground, waves of suppressed anger surged within me. I fetched a tissue to wipe her tears, speaking softly, "Let's return to the hotel first, but you must explain what happened." Liao nodded, gently linking her arm with mine as we walked towards the parking area. In the hotel room, Liao sat beside me. I applied an ice pack to her bruises, but fury still raged within me. I gritted my teeth and asked Liao, "Who the hell hit you? Was it our director?" Liao shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks again. After a long silence, she finally said to me, "It was an actress from our crew. She accused me of seducing the director, claiming that's why he favored me, arranging my schedule twice, depriving them of rest." But Liao didn't continue. She was choked with sobs, and my heart twisted like a knife. My suspicions were confirmed. Indeed, it was my involvement that had caused Liao this trouble. I wished I could find that actress now and give her a taste of her own medicine. "Do they often bully you like this?" I asked, furrowing my brows. Liao nodded, saying, "This circle is very complicated. I'm just a recent graduate, so it's normal." "Xiaoyang, you don't need to be angry for me. Who is that actress?" I asked with a grimace, still eager to demand an explanation for Liao. Liao vigorously shook her head, refusing to tell me. I felt an overwhelming sense of frustration, unable to vent. I resented myself even more for allowing Liao to suffer such injustice. Liao seemed to understand my thoughts and comforted me softly, "Don't dwell on it, or hitting me will only make me work harder. I'll surpass her one day. Maybe I'll even thank her for slapping me today." I sighed bitterly, recalling Qin Jingming's words from earlier. Yes. Whether in the workplace or the entertainment industry, we must learn to endure and compromise. Because those of us struggling at the bottom have no capital or rights to act impulsively. If we can't learn restraint, the cost will only be higher. So, for Liao's sake, all I could do was endure. But, must we live so indignantly because of our humble status? Will there never be a crystal-clear castle in the sky in this world? Can't we return to the pristine city of humanity? Who the hell will give me an answer? Chapter 37, The Hard Life of the Poor. As the night grew deeper, the autumn wind outside became more fierce. The hotel room temporarily became a refuge from the dangers outside. Liao still leaned against me, absent-mindedly gazing at the air-conditioning vent. Likewise, neither of us felt any desire to eat. After a while, I glanced at Liao's face. The fingerprints had finally faded a bit. I said to her, "Let's go out for dinner, or if you don't want to, I'll order in." Liao shook her head and replied, "Let's go out." "All right." When I arrived, our boss gave me 2,000 yuan to treat you to a meal. I exclaimed. Liao finally smiled and said, "I'm tired of the boxed meals from the crew. Today, let's indulge ourselves and eat the best." I nodded vigorously. "Yes, let's have the best. And if that's not enough, we'll ask the boss for more. Let's bankrupt him, make him tremble whenever he sees us." "You're so wicked." Liao chuckled, and we shared a laugh amidst our troubles. The night wind howled, and there were few pedestrians on the streets. Liao, dressed in a thick pink down jacket, walked beside me. Although we had initially planned to indulge in a lavish meal, we ended up deciding to just have a bowl of noodles. Perhaps at this moment, we didn't fancy the ostentatious extravagance, but instead sought solace in the simplicity of a bowl of noodles, forgetting the pains of reality within its simplicity. Inside the noodle shop, Liao removed her mask and took out a small mirror to examine her face. With some concern, she said to me, "We're shooting the posters the day after tomorrow. I wonder if these fingerprints will fade by then." "You still have tomorrow." "They should fade away by then," I reassured her. Liao nodded. "I'll apply ice packs when we get back." I looked at Liao with some heartache but didn't know what else to say. I just regretted being impatient with her before, resenting the troubles she brought me. In reality, she had been very good to me. It's just that this kindness was only noticed by me when I needed her. I felt guilty about it. Sometimes, people shouldn't view others in such a one-sided manner. Despite Liao being a troublesome woman, she also had her virtues. At least, she was very loyal to her friends. Otherwise, she wouldn't willingly endure grievances for me, nor would she choose to help me without hesitation. During dinner, Liao and I talked about our friends. She asked me, "Zhao Yang, how are Robin and Cici doing lately? Are they together?" "Not yet," I replied. "That's a pity. Cici is a good girl, although she's a bit idealistic. But Robin is idealistic too. I think they would be good together," Liao remarked. I nodded in agreement with Liao's words but added helplessly, "You should know that Robin has a hurdle in his heart. He doesn't want to carry that burden into his relationship with Cici. Anyway, I can understand him. What about you? Have you overcome the hurdle in your heart?" Liao suddenly turned the topic back to me. I had an answer in my heart but fell into silence. At this moment, I really wished someone would pass by the castle in the sky and come back to tell me how long it would take for me to overcome all obstacles and meet the woman in my heart again, but I knew that the woman waiting in the castle in the sky was no longer Jianwei. Seeing me silent for a long time, Liao smiled and said, "You've already answered with your silence." I didn't deny it, just feeling a bit lost. "Let's eat quickly. The noodles are getting soggy." Liao lowered her head and took a bite of noodles. Then, as if remembering something, she said to me, "When we return to Suzhou this time, let's gather at Cici's restaurant. It's been a long time since we've eaten there, and I really miss it." "Alright, let's do it tomorrow night and invite Robin too." With the agreement Liao and I made last time to be friends, we didn't stay together that night. In the hotel room, I still lit up a cigarette, immersing myself in loneliness. My mind couldn't help but think of Jianwei, a sensation that both panicked me and compelled me. Taking a deep drag from the cigarette, I chuckled helplessly. Despite the numerous ups and downs I experienced with Jianwei, what we pieced together was a fragmented love. Eventually, these fragments transformed into scattered forces that tore me apart. In this shattered state, I could almost see Jianwei at this moment, whispering affectionate words to Xiang Chen as they lay together in bed. She seemed to have forgotten all the moments we shared, fading away into nothingness within the shattered fragments. The pain was so numbing, it was barely perceptible. A notification beep from my phone finally pulled me out of my reverie. I extinguished the cigarette and picked up my phone from the cabinet. However, the message that saved me unexpectedly came from Mikai. "After spraying the insecticide, there should be a lot of dead cockroaches in the bathroom, right?" She was quite something, even dead cockroaches scared her. I chuckled and replied to her message, "There should be some. Do you have time now to help me clean up these dead cockroaches? I'm on a business trip in Hengdian. Wait for me to come back, or ask someone else for help first." "I'll wait for you. I don't want to bother others with such disgusting things." I couldn't help but laugh at Mikai's message. She really had a way of making me do things, even using legitimate reasons to make me handle disgusting tasks. I replied to Mikai, "The life of the poor is tough, living without dignity, without happiness. Stop complaining. Be a good person and work hard." After reading Michigan Kai's message, I couldn't help but find it genuinely amusing, although I couldn't quite explain why. Anyway, it was a rather subtle feeling. Gradually, my mood lightened. After quickly wishing Mikai good night, I drew the curtains and turned off all the lights in the room. After a while, I fell into a deep sleep. The next day, I brought Liao back to Suzhou. She had already terminated the lease on her apartment, so I helped her arrange a hotel and made plans to meet at Cici's restaurant in the evening. Of course, I had to invite Robin as well. This was a promise I made to Cici, and being a principled person, I naturally kept my word. After reporting to Chen Jingming at the company, I continued to be busy for the afternoon. It wasn't until almost evening that I finally stopped working, reclining in my chair for a moment of rest. Eventually, I took out my phone and dialed Robin's number. Robin answered the phone quickly, and I got straight to the point. "Where are you?" The sound of a shaver buzzing came from the other end of the line, and Robin replied casually, "Getting ready to work at the bar later." "Don't go. Let's gather at Cici's place tonight. I'll treat." Robin sounded a bit impatient. "I already said I'm not going. Don't give me trouble, alright? Didn't you say last time that if I bring Liao, you'll come too?" "I did say that. Is that a promise?" It is, but isn't Liao still filming in Hangdian? I chuckled and said, if I don't bring her back, how can I persuade you, Robin the Great, to come? Stop dawdling and come over. Oh, and bring my guitar with you. Tonight, let's liven up CC's place. 3-8. Due to Liao's connection, Chen Jingming's Audi A4 had become my private car these days. After ending the call with Robin, I drove to the hotel to pick up Liao, then hurried to CC's empty city music-themed restaurant. When we arrived, Robin appeared at the entrance of the alley on his modified racing motorcycle, carrying my guitar on his back. After parking the car, Liao and I got out one after the other. Liao was delighted to see Robin and greeted him from afar as they approached. Robin put his arm around Liao's shoulder and jokingly said, Liao, long time no see. Liao didn't mind Robin's casual gesture and looked at the guitar behind him, asking, Robin, are you planning to play tonight? This is Zhao Yang's guitar, Robin replied. Liao looked at me and asked, are we going to play a few songs spontaneously later? I nodded. Yes, it's been a long time since I sang at CC's restaurant. I miss the days when I used to perform here regularly. As soon as I hear the word miss, I feel sour, Robin said. Liao echoed, because nostalgia is shameful. We both are people who always look forward, right, Robin? Robin nodded. Makes sense. It's just Zhao Yang who occasionally indulges in nostalgia. We need to look back occasionally. I chuckled. At this moment, Robin and Liao were teasing me in tandem, which seemed more like a way of covering up and avoiding. However, I wouldn't expose them. No matter how perfect their disguises were in front of others, all the masks they wore to conceal themselves would still be torn apart in the dead of night, because the night least favored pretense. The three of us chatted and laughed as we walked through the dimly lit alley towards CC's restaurant. Pushing open the door, we were greeted by CC's familiar singing voice. This time, she was singing Su Wei's Time, pouring her heart into it, and hadn't noticed our arrival. We didn't disturb CC, instead, we found a corner to sit down and listen to this song that brought back so many memories. When CC reached the lyrics, you are the most beautiful spring in memory, the yesterday I find hard to return to, Robin and I almost simultaneously took out cigarettes from our packs and lit them up. I didn't know what Robin was feeling at that moment, but my heart was filled with nostalgia about the past, wishing I could go back to that spring and dive into a river of love, swimming all the way to the end of love. Applause intermittently broke out. It was only then that I realized that the song time had come to an end in the quiet passing of time. I looked up at CC on the small stage. She had already put down the guitar and noticed our arrival almost simultaneously. Her eyes were filled with surprise, but her surprise was directed at Robin, not at me and Liao. CC walked towards us with a smile, greeting us and instructing the waiter to bring us drinks and menus. Robin didn't have any special reaction to CC's arrival. He continued smoking and tuning the guitar. Standing beside Robin, CC sat down after nodding and lighting a cigarette, asking Robin, long time no see, Robin. Take a seat. Let's have a few drinks together, Robin said, making room for CC. However, his tone was flat and devoid of any emotion. CC nodded and sat down beside Robin, lighting up a cigarette as she asked him, how have you been recently? Fine, Robin replied tersely. Seeing Robin's perfunctory response, CC looked helpless, but Robin had always been like this towards her, and there was nothing she could do about it. She fell silent afterward. The waiter brought drinks and beverages, and we filled our glasses. The three of us started chatting, disregarding Robin. CC flicked the ash off her cigarette and asked me, Zhao Yang, why didn't you bring your girlfriend with you tonight to have some fun? I hesitated for a moment before answering, she's busy. Busy all day. As soon as I finished speaking, both Liao and Robin asked me at the same time, do you have a girlfriend now? At this moment, I found myself somewhat regretting the casual remark I made to CC that day, claiming Miai as my girlfriend. Yet, habits die hard, and in the presence of Fang Yuan and Jianwei, I continued to introduce Miai as my girlfriend, thus perpetuating the introduction to CC. Very well, I replied nonchalantly. Robin seemed indifferent to the fact that I had a girlfriend, lifting his glass to take a sip without further inquiry. However, Liao, beside him, was quite intrigued and eagerly inquired, who is it, Zhao Yang? You've met her, I said, raising my glass to signal Liao to take a sip, attempting to divert her attention. Liao paid no heed to me, pondered for a moment, and said, is it that woman who helped you pay the fine at the police station last time? Guess, I said, picking up the guitar tuned by Robin and heading towards the small stage opposite, fearing Liao's incessant questioning. As I settled into the chair on stage, Robin joined me on stage. We exchanged a glance, each resigned in our own way. I feared Liao's probing, while Robin dreaded facing CC. Robin signaled for another microphone from the sound engineer and then addressed the band behind him. Let's do a song from Black Panther, Don't Break My Heart. The band found their pitch and signaled to us. Robin and I made an okay gesture, then closed our eyes, immersing ourselves in the prelude of the song. Throughout the entire song, I remained deeply engrossed, eyes shut until the end. Subconsciously, I glanced towards the seats we had just vacated, only to discover Miai unexpectedly at the restaurant, sitting with CC, applauding for us. The gazes of the diners also turned towards them. One beauty alone was already a rare sight, but now with Miai, Liao, and CC together, the allure was magnified, drawing the attention of the diners. Yet, amidst this captivating effect, I felt a wave of anxiety, fearing CC might introduce Miai as my girlfriend to Liao, and then Miai, without giving face, would expose the truth, causing me great embarrassment. Handing the guitar to Robin, gesturing for him to continue, I hastily left the stage. Approaching the trio of women just as I was about to speak, Liao said to me, "I'll go get your file, it's been a long time since I collaborated with Robin." She then walked towards the small stage. I sat beside Miai, taking advantage of CC's attention on the stage, lowering my voice to ask Miai, "How did you find your way here? Didn't I promise to come help you get rid of those damn cockroaches whenever I had time? Why the hurry?" Miai looked at me as if I were foolish, and after a long pause, asked, "Do you think I came to find you?" It was then that I realized how presumptuous I had been in my anxiety. I remembered Miai mentioning her fondness for this restaurant with CC. Naturally, she would come here for a meal, purely by chance. To ease my embarrassment, I boldly asked Miai, "That rendition of Don't Break My Heart I sang just now was quite good, wasn't it?" "The man beside you sang wonderfully, I didn't pay attention to you," Miai replied, speaking to me but watching Robin on stage, seeming eager for his next song. I clutched my chest, contorting my face in a painful expression, and said, "Oh, dear, my heart is in pain, I'm your boyfriend, you can't treat me like this, my heart is breaking." "Boring," Miai retorted. Miai's attitude relieved me somewhat. If she were to embarrass me severely, her response wouldn't be just a simple boring. Lifting my glass, I took a sip of beer, then redirected my attention to the small stage, awaiting Liao and Robin's duet. Chapter 39, Master of Life. On the small stage, Robin strummed the guitar while Liao sang along to the rhythm of the music. Meanwhile, I drank beer absent-mindedly. After a while, I remarked to CC, "Liao is truly a budding starlet." CC, puzzled, asked, "What makes you say that? Have you ever heard Yang Mi or Fan Bingbing sing well? Judging by singing alone, Liao is destined to become a top-tier actress." I explained. CC chuckled and remarked, "Jia Yang, you're quite wicked, teasing Liao in such a roundabout way. She'll know how to get back at you." Curious, I nudged Miai beside me and said, "You should go up there and perform later. We haven't heard your enchanting voice yet." "I only enjoy listening to others sing," Miai declined, shaking her head. Feeling a bit bored, I took a sip of beer and then focused my attention on Liao's singing on stage. A while later, CC instructed the waiter to bring a camera, got up from her seat, and captured Liao and Robin's figures on stage from a good angle. I remarked to CC upon her return to our seats, "You're biased, you didn't take a photo of me when I was singing earlier, capturing my heroic stance." CC smiled and showed me the photo she had just taken, saying, "They turned out quite well, this might become a photo with special significance." I nodded and glanced at Liao and Robin on stage again. Perhaps one day they would truly become famous in the entertainment industry. The duet photo of them before fame would naturally hold special significance. Yet, even if that day came, who would know of the countless struggles they had faced behind the scenes before their fame? It was a simple evening, where we took turns singing on the small stage. Miai, in particular, remained quiet almost the entire time, simply listening quietly, as if every visitor to Empty City treated it as a beach to rest and relax, enjoying the simple warmth of human connection in music. Originally, it was agreed that I would treat everyone to dinner, but in the end, Miai took out 1,000 yuan and dropped it into the humane box, showcasing humanity. I felt proud of this and boasted in front of everyone that my girlfriend was wealthy. Others jokingly called me the kept man by Miai. In reality, there was no wealthy woman or kept man, just young people enjoying each other's company. Our youth was fleeting, and only through laughter and fun did we make our dwindling youth less lonely and burdensome, because none of us wanted to be lonely in the most beautiful years of our lives. Leaving CC's restaurant, Miai bid farewell to everyone and drove off first, followed by Robin. I had to drop Liao off at her hotel. On the way, Liao, who hadn't been drinking, was driving. I opened the car window, lit a cigarette, and gazed at the city under the night sky out of habit. At some point, the sky had become overcast with a drizzle, and the autumn breeze felt cool. Liao suddenly changed lanes, turning the car in the opposite direction. She said to me, "It's still early, the hotel is too stuffy. Let's go sit by the moat." "Sure," I replied, continuing to immerse myself in the boundless night. After a while, we arrived at the moat and sat close to each other on the slightly damp grass. After sitting for a while, I lay back on the grass, letting the gentle rain soak me, completely emptying myself in the coolness of the autumn breeze. Liao also lay down beside me, her hand resting on my chest, softly asking in my ear, "Jiayan, Mia isn't really your girlfriend, is she?" Somewhat surprised, I asked, "How did you figure that out?" Liao smiled and said, "It's a woman's intuition. I can tell she doesn't have romantic feelings for you." Liao's insight made me believe that women truly were intuitive beings. I nodded and said, "Yes, she's not really my girlfriend. It's just that when I met Jianwei last time, I didn't want her to see me in a sorry state, so I said she was my girlfriend on impulse." "Jianwei is back?" Liao sounded surprised. "Yes," I sighed and then lit another cigarette, taking a deep drag. I rested my arm under my head and gazed pensively at the drizzling sky. Liao seemed a bit cold, so she hugged me tighter, but remained silent. And so, two people, floating in and out of life, huddled together on this rainy night, seeking the scant warmth in their lives. After a while, Liao softly asked in my ear, "Jiayang, do you have a place you long to be?" "I do, it's a city," I replied. "A city? Like CC's restaurant?" "No, it's in the sky, a celestial city, crystal clear, where a beautiful woman with long hair lives," I replied. Liao pondered for a moment and said, "Mia is a beautiful woman with long hair." "Not her, her hair is slightly wavy," I denied, then asked Liao, "What about you? What place do you long for in your heart?" "It's an island across the beach, but I don't know where this island is." Later, in the middle of the sea, I met a man sailing a boat. He took me to that island, and we've been living together ever since. Every evening, we watch the sunset on the island. He cooks dinner for me every evening, so there's smoke rising from the island, and we no longer have to think about the worldly worries. Liao narrated. I chuckled and said, "You're really something. You've even thought out the plot of the story. But it's beautiful, even more beautiful than my city." Liao fell silent, pressing her face against mine. After a while, she said to me, "Jiayang, stop thinking about Jianwei. Focus on fighting for your own life. Let's not be defeated by reality." The cigarette in my hand had been dampened by the rain. I took a deep drag, feeling not only the smoke but also the dampness of the rain, which made me uncomfortable. I couldn't help but ask myself, could I really forget Jianwei and strive to become a master of life? This time, I gave myself an answer. Whether I could forget Jianwei or not, I should strive to become a master of life. I deeply understood that the opportunity one had received in my work was obtained through Liao's immense sacrifice for me. After a moment of silence, I said to Liao, "It's time for me to fight for my life from today onwards. I'll quickly sort out my life and become a master of life." "Okay. Jiaoyang, hold me tight. It's getting cold." The rain continued to fall gently. Finally, a puddle had formed in a low-lying area, and the light from the street lamp cast shadows on this small pool of water, seemingly reflecting the celestial city and the island across the beach.